Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Monday night session here of the political consciousness of West Coast Steeler fan. Missed last week, but we're back today, and hey, as always, some very controversial things to talk about. Uh, we have a very someone that's very new to us. Where'd he go? Oh, well, Dr. Casey's here, though. Dr. Casey, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well in yourself. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Great.
Did,
Add it to work.
did so? Did you get everything working since the last time we talked? We were on the show.
If you can hear me clearly, then everything is working. I actually had to do some ordering of some different cords so that I could try to figure out the easiest way to work with the least feedback.
Okay, all right. Well, evidently it's working, and I see that. What was it? Instagram? I saw you on.
Probably.
Okay, all
I'm
right,
there the
all right.
most.
Okay. SFTV, right?
Uh huh.
Okay. All right. Well, you might as well tell everybody what it stands for. So go ahead. I'm gonna give
Speaking
you.
Freedom TV.
Okay.
Um, it's going to turn into a network, and it's really just a lot of videos. I talk about a lot of different things. I talk about politics. I talk about love, sex, relationships, business, and really the soul. So it just encompasses everything, and it allows listeners to choose and pick what topics and subjects they would like to listen to. I'm on episode 7 that's uploading right now, and it's over 100 episodes. I have right at 80,000 views overall right now. So it's really exciting.
And you, how long has SFTV been up and
Well, I
yeah?
have been actively posting publicly with it just since September, so about 5 months.
Okay, okay. And you had how many? How many did you say?
I have over 100 episodes. I want to say probably about 120 maybe. But a lot of it is just documented stuff that I've talked about like 2 years ago, a year ago, and I just collectively am releasing it now.
And where can we find
SpeakingFreedomTV.org will take you directly to the Speaking Freedom TV website and information so you can look through the episodes and the seasons. The seasons are not consecutive like episodes or topics that's continuations. It's really just made up of the different topics, and then I'm talking about different topics. Now, some episodes may be part one, part two of those episodes or topics because I may have a lot to say. But normally they are just random topics that I talk about. It could be something that I seen on social media or heard somebody talking about, and it just sparked the conversation. And some of it is just me thinking out loud.
it? That usually gets me in a lot of trouble. Uh,
I
with that,
mean, um, it
right?
is very very controversial to do it because some people can't handle like your raw thoughts. A lot of people are used to being sugarcoated to or lied to or kind of manipulated into what they want their version of truth to be instead of the facts. So I kind of get away from all of that, and because I do spiritual human behavior, which is mixing spirituality with life experience and human behavior, um, it allows me to talk about things from a different perspective, a more broadened understanding.
Okay. Well, as you and most people that have seen or watched the show, uh, I talk a lot about the city of Minneapolis,
Mhm.
and I kind of use it as an example for how things work within the black and white community in a city that um, you don't normally think of as having a large black population. But as I've been saying, when you look at the state of Minnesota, it has the most violations of human rights against minorities than any other state in the union. Which really surprised me because I know, black people, first thing you think of, down south, you know, well, at least people of my generation anyway. It might be a little different for yours, but anyway. And, I also found out that they have a large Somali community, which, you know, Senator, excuse me, what's her name? Uh, Not AOC, but the other lady. Here's Mr. Scott. Speaking of the Twin Cities, good evening, Mr. Scott.
Good evening. It's
Okay,
great to
now,
see
not
Dr. Casey. I
now.
love to see Dr. Casey. And you too, James. You too, James. So,
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be included somewhere in that sense. But I was talking about your beloved city, uh, the city in which you've resided, from what my understanding is, all of your life. So you've spent quite a few years dealing with the uh, minority problems within your city. But I want to talk about the sentencing that happened this week, of a former deputy, Kim Potter. And this is the lady, if you don't know, this is the lady that mistook her taser. No, excuse me, mistook her weapon for a taser.
right. She thought she farted, but okay.
Right, right. And as you watched some of the evidence, the first thing she said was, call my union rep. She didn't say, make sure he's all right, or anything like that. This is Mr. Burgess from our Thursday show, but he's found time to join us this evening.
Thanks for having
And
me. I appreciate it.
Demetrius, that's Dr. Casey, and as you can see, Mr. Anthony Scott. Mr. Anthony Scott, he resides in the Twin Cities, uh, Minneapolis, St. Paul. And we were discussing the sentencing of Miss Potter. And as you saw, the headline said 2 years and $1,000 fine. So, Mr. Scott, I decided to look through some of your laws here in Minnesota. And I found out that if I had a pet, or maybe it was your pet, and I decided to poison the pet, this is what would happen. Okay, let me just pull this up here. Where is it? Okay. It's chapter 343, and it's the prevention of cruelty to animals. A person who intentionally violates subdivision one of seven, there's seven of these here.
Okay, so
The-
James, wait. because as soon as you say intentionally, based on the law for that protects police officers, once she said that she thought she pulled the wrong, I mean, like she thought she pulled something else, she's already taken out the intent behind it. It already says that she wasn't doing it on purpose, that she made a mistake. Now, whether that's true or not is neither here nor there, because all they have to do is present. All they have to do is present the facts to make it look a certain way, and if nobody can prove otherwise, then that's what they base it off of.
Well, now this can also apply to a person. Suppose you have moved, but you leave your animal at the old house until you have time to build a dog house or something like that. But the dog is barking or so forth and so on. So, but I'm just
Intention.
you. I'm well, but you can be it. Though your intentions were to harm the animal.
No,
You,
but your intentions, you intentionally left the animal behind. So that's like child abandonment. If you intentionally leave your child somewhere and you abandon them, your ass on jail.
okay. Oh, okay. All right.
Going to
I'm
jail.
getting okay. I'm getting all that you're saying there, but you're not getting the relevance of what I'm saying here. Okay. Now,
I
then,
totally understand.
you know, this is an animal. This woman took a person's life. Now, what her intentions were. That's between her and the man upstairs, and for the next 2 years, whoever her bunkie is. But anyway, to get back to this here. Okay, now, if I intentionally harm this animal, death or great bodily harm, okay, to a pet or a companion animal, I may be sentenced to an imprisonment of no more than 2 years and a payment of a $5,000 fine or both. So, intentional. I understand, that when we're talking, when we say intentional, there's a specific thing there. But my relevance is the sentencing. I can get more time for intentionally leaving a dog behind than I can for unintentionally shooting. Excuse me, it's not cribbing after dark. A minority. This is a parallel that I'm trying to draw. Yeah, she didn't even get the max for a dog. She could get $5,000. She didn't even. I mean, a cat even.
James, I hear what
Go
I
ahead.
totally understand, but when you
Go ahead.
know that I I have to weigh on the I'm not right, she wrong is wrong could be. However, when you look at the law gives a out, plain and out
Is
for
is,
any
is
police officer, any government official, not just police officers.
that,
It's
that,
an
that's
immunity law that says if I can make an excuse good enough to get you off my butt, then I'm gonna make this excuse and you're gonna
Yeah,
let it
but
fly.
that's phony as two left shoes. I mean, come on, let's really look at what really happened here. I mean, here's a judge that gets up in there and she's crying about this woman. Okay, this woman killed this man. She killed this man and said it was, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. The judge gets up there and gives lenience and cries and sympathizes with this woman. See, Minnesota right now has become a place where these Negroes up here are in suspended animation. They don't even know how to fight back. They don't even know how to. We continue to be put in a real morass up here in the Twin Cities, and it's no surprise that we're on the news all the time now. Now you see Minneapolis, St. Paul, people getting shot, trials. I mean, when George Floyd died, even before they could get the trial done, they had killed Dante Wright. They had went over here and done that before they could even get that done. So we're in a situation now where, like I say, we're black folks are suspending animation. We're not fighting back. We're not really coming up with our own agendas to really turn this thing around because the police really aren't going to do it. I mean, when they can go in and kill a mere child, that wasn't even the person they were looking for.
See, but
They
some
go
of this,
in there
some of
in a
this to me, Mr. Scott, is fear tactics. Like if we show you that we can kill you and get away with it,
yeah,
then it's going to trigger you. It's going to kind of stifle you.
yeah, but
It's
it
going
hasn't
to
worked. It hasn't worked because see, people don't care about the bullets anymore. People don't care about this. I mean, we used to, James, when we grew up, we get into a beef. I say, well, I'll meet you in the alley after school. We get out there, we throw a few hands, and the next day you see us, we playing basketball together. We out there shooting hoops together. You know, these two guys that were fighting. But now they go up, they see you in the car, they shoot you in the head. They see you in the car, they shoot you in the head. And see, we have got into a lawless, and it's really not just here. This is not just here in the Twin Cities. We have really, with pandemics, with all these things that are going on, and the trauma that we have still held from the day we got over here, it's really exacerbated now, and we're really in some I think we're really in some critical times right now.
Demetrius, you've kind of back there. I see you have taken in a few things. Go ahead. This is not our show, our regular Tuesday show. So,
what y'all do
th-
on
th-
Tuesdays?
I mean Thursday.
Thursday. Thursday.
What y'all, what,
What day is it? Wait a minute. What day is it?
what y'all be doing on Thursdays? Whichever day it is, what y'all got going on Thursday?
we do sports on Thursday,
We do sports on Thursday. Yeah.
but
Well,
we
that's
have,
why I'm invited on Thursday. See, because
but we
James,
have we have a
James
special
I
part.
already got him. So
But we have a special part called Cribbing After Dark.
After dark. Once it hits 9 o'clock Central Time, anything goes. 9:01 on, anything goes.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. We're not there yet. I had to check my clock.
But on this show, Cribbing After Dark starts when it says broadcasting live.
when it says live.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So first, it's a pleasure to meet you both. I appreciate it. I'm going to be in minority, and I'm okay with that because I think there's room for every perspective. I think that the word trauma was used, and the trauma from the situations that we've endured for, I don't know, 530 years or so, right, doesn't ever go away. I think, though, that we have to be better than them. And what I mean by that is, I actually don't view this case the way most people do. I think that this is not George Floyd. This is not Breonna Taylor Martyr. That's not what this was. This was a mistake. Now, it doesn't mean that the sentence was right, because I don't think it was. I think everything Mr. Scott said about the judge being lenient is true. But when I have conversations with people, I separate this. I say to them, I believe in my heart, this could have been a black cop. And I think we can go back and find cases where black cops mistakenly or accidentally, whatever word you're comfortable with, fired on a suspect. This suspect could have just as easily been white. I think this lady genuinely made a mistake. It doesn't bring Dante back. It doesn't help his family at all. And it doesn't change how we initially feel. But I had to take my reaction, which was trauma. Like Mr. Scott said, I was like, are we serious? Are we serious? And then I had to get information, and I had to decide what I thought about this case. And when I saw the video and she said taser before, and immediately afterwards, different than other cases, she immediately acknowledged what she had done and actually showed remorse and contrition. Doesn't bring back Dante, doesn't help his family. I just don't see it the same way as I see some other cases. I still don't think the sentence was right. Like, all that being said, I have to, in my mind, separate it, because I think I do a disservice to the real injustices. I do a disservice to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor if I act like this was the same thing. I can have a separate outrage for this. It's unfortunate, but it's not the same. It's not the same that I feel about Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and Walter Scott, and the list goes on and on. It's not the same outrage. This one is different. It doesn't make it better. It doesn't make the sentencing right. But I think we have to be better than them, because when we separate these and speak about a situation like this the way I think it should be, we can then speak with even more emphatically about the obvious injustice and the ones that are legitimate. And I don't feel bad for this lady, because it's a family who lost a young man. But I think it's important that we don't put this in with those others, because I don't think it's the same. And I think we have to be better able to say, okay, that's wrong. That's wrong because that's just a soft sentence, and the judge should not have been that empathetic. Not because it was a white cop shot a black guy. Not because of that. Because you're just wrong. No matter who that was, there's got to be guidelines. And I haven't done the homework and gone back and look at precedent. I should. I think there's a place for both of these without them necessarily being together.
Well, I have to agree with you on the fact that these cases are different. There's another case that happened up here in Minneapolis a couple of years ago, where a Somali police officer, which is a whole other thing, the areas of Somalis and what the dynamics of that here in the Twin Cities. I mean, I can go into that infinitum. But that case was a situation where there was a Somali officer that went into a white neighborhood. That's it. For me, for one reason, why is he even patrolling in that area? I mean, why is he even there? For one reason, he goes there. This white woman calls up and says, well, I think I saw something, an assault in the alley. Okay. So the police drive up, and she runs out in her nightgown to talk to the police about it. And the Somali shoots her dead. He goes right through the thing, and the Somali shoots her dead, kills her.
Yeah.
Okay. And her family gets a $20 million settlement, lickety split, officers in jail for 12 years. And so they're trying to lump all these things together. And what you're saying, Demetrius, is, see, these things are not the same. These are different situations that, when we see it as the public, we see, oh, well, somebody got killed. That's what we see. We see that, but how we get to that is really where the system has to come in and fix these things and really backtrack these things and figure out, well, this Somali officer, to me, should not have been in that neighborhood. Exactly. For one. Yep. He was just, how in the world can you be startled by someone walking up to you? They didn't have a gun. They didn't have anything. They didn't threaten you. They weren't threatening in any way. And you turn around and you shoot over your partner and kill this woman.
But wait a minute. Hold on. I think everyone is forgetting, because at no time did I bring up race. At no time did I say one was black and one was white. I brought up the sentencing. Just the sentencing, regardless of who they were.
I didn't either, James. I was talking about was the law, the way the law is written. Yes, and the law is written to protect anybody that works for. It's not just the police officers. That immunity law protects every single soul that signs a dotted line and say they work for the federal government, even the state government, any government agency. They get that immunity. And as long as they have a good cover story, whatever they say happened, as long as they can present enough facts.
Well, I think you brought up a really smart word. The first time you spoke about this was intent. And for me, the fact that she yells taser before she acts, that is how I deduce what I believe her intent to be. That so take out the color. For me, it was what you talked about with intent. There was, when that man's knee was on George Floyd's neck, his intent was obvious. His intent was obvious. There was no doubt. When those men chased Ahmaud down in the truck, their intent was obvious. And when she yells taser, I think that expresses her intent. And then she supports that when she immediately, expresses remorse and contrition. Oh my God, I shot him. So take out the race.
And
I
I've
think the difference
lost my
is
job.
But see, I
Oh,
had to
oh,
bring
oh,
the point up when I made my example about the Somali officer killing the white woman. Okay, yeah, you could take race out of it. Oh, race has nothing to do with anything. Oh, what did Whoopi Goldberg say? Oh, it wasn't about race. It is about race in this country. This is the elephant in
But
this room.
everything does not
Everything
equate
revolves
to race.
around that.
no,
In
well,
this
the,
country,
the fact that he
Let the
got
Whoopi
12 years
Goldberg
and she
comment.
got 2, I don't know. Maybe that's about race. I don't know. But specifically, I like the word intent that you brought up, and I think it's important to talk about it from that sense. The sentencing is a separate conversation, and I think Mr. Scott has a point. That guy got 12 years and she got 2. That's a conversation that's probably around race. I'm sorry, it is. But specifically to her getting 2 years, I don't know if it's fair, but I think intent is important.
well, but I also, like I also brought up when I was on the show, uh, there is how you talk about training. Okay. Well, in this year's budget, out of the 600, well, no, excuse me, yeah, $60 million, excuse me, that they put in for the police department budget, $27 million of that was supposed to go to training. Okay. So and as I've brought up many times, you know, here's a state where you might not want to say it's intentional, but when you look at the facts, you know, it kind of says that if you're dark in Minnesota, if you're not the same color as the snow, you're in trouble. And you don't really think of when you think of uh, police departments or brutality against minorities, we don't think of northern states or northwestern states. People don't realize how many uh, white supremacist organizations we have in Montana, Idaho, South Dakota, North Dakota, and your state too, Mr. Scott, uh, Minnesota. I mean, between the indigenous people and the black people, I mean, Saturday night must be, like, where we going tonight, boys? You know,
So, James, when you say training, you been to war, right, Mr. Scott? Did you serve in the military?
no, I didn't.
Okay, so James, when you went to war, how did they train you to prepare to go to war?
um,
They told you
what
that they told you anybody could be a threat. Because when I went to war, they
it
told me anybody could be a threat, whether it's a
well,
woman, a child, an old person. They could use a baby. This is what they told us. I mean,
well,
and they
that
trained us to where if somebody get close enough to you, you need to shoot to kill.
was that
This
wasn't
is the
what.
training that we have for the military going to war.
Well,
I am pretty
that's
sure.
because of us. We did not get that type of training. We were supposed, like, to go in, separate the old people, and if the people were between a certain age, this and that, then you interrogate them or take them in. But the old people, and then all of a sudden, we found out what suicide bombers were after a, a Buddhist monk decided to turn himself into a human torch. Then we decided that, oh, maybe we need to look at everybody. But before that, no, it wasn't like that. It was, separate the women and the children, save the Titanic and all that,
So how
and
did y'all go about your assault? Because you got on airborne, that's like infantry. What was the training like for that? Because when you go to the police force, they're not training you to be a compassionate, understanding, social worker. They are
and
training you.
most of the police department, at least in my city, and we're a rather small city, were former military, usually former military police.
And that's even worse because they
I'm
got
just,
PTSD.
that's-
That mean they
That is
temperamental.
yeah, one of the biggest parts of it. I think
Yeah,
when you
they're
go to war, and I
temperamental.
only know from my brother-in-law, my sister's husband served and is currently a state police officer in Tennessee. And he told me, his words were, when I was in the military, I was trained to see my opposition as the enemy, someone who could potentially take my life. And when you come back and you take that to the streets, you can't turn that off. And I can see someone on the streets. And then if you factor in race, because my brother-in-law is obviously black, but you can factor that in with all of the history of fear that white people have of black people, which is at the root of a lot of this, that many white cops who don't believe in their heart that they're racist see an African American in a situation with no evidence or any real reason to believe that person poses a threat to their life. It's automatic in their mind. And then they're trained by military and by police to respond in kind. That is a huge part. What Dr. Casey is saying, huge part of what we're talking about. I don't know that I feel comfortable saying no one who's ever served should be a police officer. That feels like that's harsh and a bit of an overstep for me. But I'm not going to sit here and say I don't think that's a part of the problem, because I do.
That's definitely a part of the problem, especially when you factor in a lot of these veterans now are wartime veterans with
Yeah.
PTSD,
Yeah.
and we are trained to kill.
Right.
Like I struggled with that for a long time as a civilian when I would see Muslims in their attire, and I mean, my hands would start shaking, like oh my god, like I would literally have anxiety attacks just being in the room. I felt like I needed to attack, like I needed to be on guard. So if I felt like that as a soldier getting out, and if I would have transitioned, because I tried to get on with the police department and they wouldn't have me. I'm kind of glad that they wouldn't, because I don't know what
Right.
that would have resulted in. But to take that from there and insert it right into that, you're not out of that. You never detach from that mindset of being
Yeah.
in war.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's why I say, what we're going through here is when we say PTSD, what that says to me is post traumatic slave disorder. I mean, it goes back
It's
to,
both.
it goes back. It's the same thing for us.
Mhm,
To
mhm,
me, that's
mhm.
our diagnosis. And, we have to really look back to, when the missionaries came to Africa, they had the Bible and we had the land. Okay. They said, let us pray. We closed our eyes. And when we opened them, we had the Bible and they had the land.
And then they
So
stripped
this
you all the spirituality that you ever even knew.
and this is the thing that
Everything
we
evil.
continue. We continue to, because they're doing everything they can to keep this upper hand. Everything they can do to not let us have a foothold in this world. Everything we look at, the stuff with the NFL now. Okay, the brother, he sued him. And all of a sudden, James, your man in Pittsburgh, he hires him. He hires him. Okay, well, what does that do? It mitigates the lawsuit. It mitigates. He's got a job now. How can you say that you discriminate against me when I got another job? See, and so we're in a control type of a situation where until we rise up, and we've had many brothers and sisters that have tried to do it over the years. And you hear about them only on Black History Month. But
Well, I mean, under
here,
CR,
here, here, here,
under
here, here we
CRT,
sit.
how much longer is that going to last under CRT? I mean, how can you possibly have Black History, because that might make
I
Jeb
don't think that
Stewart's
they're
great
not gonna be
third
able to get rid of
cousin.
CRT. They're
Well,
not gonna be able to get, well, one, the race crap that they teach right now, all the history is false. They manipulated it to the point to where it's not even accurate no more. So I mean, like they can't, but I don't think that what they're pushing for is to protect their own feelings. And I don't think that it's going to go as well as they assess. or that they plan, I think in 3 to 5 years, a lot of things are going to be even more integrated than they expect right now. It's just like with the COVID. I Now nobody is requiring you to have your vaccination card. Now nobody is requiring you to isolate no more. Now everybody is trying to, loosen their holds about COVID. But just a year ago, they told you wasn't going to be able to move. They made you fearful that if you didn't do what they told you to do, this was going to be the result.
So did you get vaccinated, Dr. Casey? Have you been vaccinated?
Mr. Scott, I was gonna say, hell no, I ain't get vaccinated. You know good dang on well I ain't get. Mr. Scott,
but
quit playing.
but yeah, that good evening, Miss Sims. How are you doing tonight?
Greetings all, greetings all.
Hello,
Uh,
Hello, hello.
hello.
Miss Sims, we were actually talking about the sentencing of Miss Potter, and the fact that she got 2 years and $1,000 fine for taking the life of a black man.
Hmm.
But I was talking about the sentencing itself, and I was comparing it to a different sentence also from your state of Minnesota, Minneapolis, as a matter of fact. But I was wondering what you thought about the sentencing of Miss Potter. In the sense of 2 years and $1,000 fine, and Mr. Scott brought up a great point when he was talking about the Somali policeman that shot the lady and got 12 years for a similar offense. But what did you think about the sentencing? We're going to take out the race period. What did you think about the sentencing? The two
Well,
years and $1,000 for taking her life.
well, can you hear me? Well, that and other things that are happening up here with the police and their actions and behavior. This is one of the instances where I've said before. I look at the power behind the power, and that means looking at what's making policemen here feel such a high level of comfort they get that they can continue to do what they're doing in terms of killing our sons, nephews, etc., etc. So I look to the police unit. What's going on there? What's the relationship there? Is very powerful uh, because it's like to me, especially here, when you are a policeman and all the standards that's set up behind the scenes, you have a license to kill. Really have a license to kill, and the system, the legal and political systems are in place to support you to see that you get as less as possible. And so, and I think that's one way that and the judges and things like that. All that comes into play regarding who gets what, who sentences to what. It's on the surface, and the reality is when you make those comparisons, it's very unfair. It's very unequal. It's very you can tell anybody can tell the difference in terms of the favoritism, the most favored, things like that. And so, while at the same time, I wonder how people, constituents, the voters, the other politicians, people that realize that that's not fair, that there's something wrong with the system, why more people don't speak up to challenge that system, to go to have whatever it takes, and it takes bravery a lot of times to step out, and when you see something, say something, and that's where I'm coming from at this point.
Uh, Demetrius, you brought up a point there that I want you to kind of elaborate on because you said it takes time or something to the effect that it's going to take a little longer. Um, I'm not sure. You may have been around, but I'm not sure if you remember the Civil Rights Act of 1965.
Of
They
course.
gave us the okay. Uh,
I was
d-
not
d-
yet born, but I've done quite a bit of reading. Right?
okay, okay. Do you remember when we also had the same meeting with Nixon?
Familiar with that as well. Yeah.
Okay, and 1987 with
Sure.
Ronnie Reagan.
Sure. And I
Okay,
get your point. I get your point
yeah,
totally. But
yeah. I mean, well, the
we
point
can't
is that
stop. We can't stop though. Right? We can't stop. We have to.
no, no,
It's on
no.
us.
The point is that my grandmother told me the same thing. Like we have to wait, child. I mean, you just can't step on these white folks' toes. You have to tread softly. Which brings me back to that term that Mr. Scott used. You know, you got to be a good Negro. Well, that's one N word I've never been. I'm sorry.
I feel
You
fairly certain I've not said we should wait
know.
or be passive
Why
in
am I
any way.
being put in that? Why am I being put in that? I mean, the thing
You're
about
blamed for
people,
everything because
the
you're from
thing
Minnesota,
is not,
apparently.
James, about being a Negro. It's not about you say you are. It's that they said you were. That's where that came from. They said that. I never said it either, but they said that's who you are, and so that's I mean, when these police shootings happen, the first thing they say is they fear for their life. Now, I watched Walter Scott get killed down south, okay? And the reason I watched that is because my dad is named Walter Scott and my brother is named Walter Scott. And so I watched them and they say they feared for their life and they shot this man in the back. He was running. He didn't have no weapon or anything. He's running and they shot him in the back and they're
It was
fearful.
a miracle that that was caught on tape because they would have definitely denied that.
Yeah.
They would have swore up and down that that man was trying to attack.
And there's another one that happened here in Minneapolis with a gentleman, but they don't even talk about that, named Thurman Blevins. And I know the family because we grew up in church together. And this brother
See,
was sitting on a sidewalk with his girlfriend and their dog, and the police drove up, and he got up and run, and they shot him in the back.
it listen, I talk
You
like
can't even do that on Gunsmoke Westerns. They don't shoot people in the back.
I
They
talk
say,
like I do because of the lawsuit that I got going on with the government. I am facing the same exact thing right now with the doctor that decided to put notes in my medical records that should have been noted. And now they act like for months, years, they act like they didn't know what was going on. But I caught them in lies. That's the only way that I got to knowing the truth about what happened. It wasn't because they told me what happened. They had denied it and denied it. I mean, like all the way into the deposition, they was denying it. But when they was asked the right questions, they fumbled the ball. They fumbled and they told the truth. And if I would have not pursued it, they would not have come to light with the truth. They would have hidden that all the way through. And that's the same thing that happens with the police. You can put whatever you want to in that report. You can say whatever you want to in that report. And guess what? Because you are sworn in as an official, they're going to take your word for it automatically. And because of the way the immunity laws are set up, intention is a big thing when it comes to the police because they have a little bit of a different immunity law. But even with the doctors, the immunity law is not just good for the police officers. Even if anybody, whether you are a doctor, a lawyer, a judge, any of these things, and you can find the right excuse for whatever it is that you're trying to get away with, you can do it. And the government is gonna back you and they're gonna protect
You
you.
know,
And the
that's
reason why her fine is so low is because they gotta sue the government. She was a police officer. She was on duty. So she is only gonna get the minimum. They're gonna have to go and sue the actual police department and the city in order to recoup any amount of damages.
Well, they have to see what appointments Reverend Sharpton has before they do. But go ahead,
well, no,
Demetrius.
Dr. Casey, you made a good point because for years I had a business. I was a vocational rehab counselor and I worked with workers' comp. Okay. And I worked with attorneys that just handled plaintiff cases. In other words, if you were hurt, you'd go to your attorney. You know, you probably see him on TV. Go ask Larry. Go ask, I work with these people. But across the board, they thought all the black people's injuries were fake. Okay. Across the board, they were kind of like, this is the way they treated all the black people in the workers' comp. They get hurt on the job, they fall down, they get cut working in these dangerous situations. But if it was a black person, it was always, let's try to settle this case quick and get it over with and give them a little money and be done with it. But see, that's how they continue. That's how they continue to treat us. And I saw that.
Their job is to make things go away.
Go
They
ahead,
make things go away.
go ahead, Demetrius. We've talked all over you, so go ahead.
No, it's fine. I think that for me, the change comes, it's not waiting. It's not letting somebody else doing it. I just take a different approach. For me, it's legislative. I think you have to attack this legislatively. Make using excessive force that results in the death of, make it a hate crime. Make a white officer killing a black person through excessive force a hate crime. You change
You
that
gotta
law.
have people in office for that though.
Change the legislation and get rid of no-knock warrants. No-knock warrants are targets for black people. The numbers speak for themselves, but I think that you don't get the change by sentencing this cop to 20 years. That doesn't change anything. Maybe we feel okay for a day or two. It doesn't change the condition of people that look like us. We have to change it through legislation and training of police officers, holding heads of police departments accountable for things that their officers do. That has to be legislation. And to Dr. Casey's point, we do that when we get people in office and we get laws passed. And I know we're going to talk about Ahmaud later. There's a very big case there. The federal case making that a hate crime sets precedent. That is so important. People are not realizing how important that is, because in these situations, the best thing you can have is precedent, something to go back and look to and say, here is the baseline of what we do when you kill an unarmed black man. It's a hate crime. That's how you change it. And even then, it still takes time. But I'm never saying slow down or wait.
Is a time consuming process.
Absolutely. But it's the way we get real change. And it never ending, it never stops, and we never slow down or wait for anybody. But I'm just saying we have to drive it, but let's drive it intelligently through legislation. And of course, protests and everything else we do, I'm all for everything.
Now, Dr. Casey also lives in Atlanta. And, as we've talked about on the sports crib about, giving water to people in line. And as Dr. Casey had explained to me, that's something that you cannot do, period, without there being, if you get caught, of course, without there being some type of jail and fine involved. Which is, I think, half of the sentence that I just mentioned. But anyway, so, Doctor, between you say we have to have legislation. I mentioned 1965, 1978, 1982, and then today, of course, is the birthday of John Lewis. And we're still trying to get the John Lewis Voting Act passed. So, Demetrius, that's 75 years of legislation then.
But
And
you got
and
the same people that was in office then still in office.
wait a minute, hold it, because you know that that's part of one of the things that I wanted to bring up, because these people have been voted in office. As a matter of fact, I think I may have voted Maxine Waters in. I'm not sure, but I mean, but I do. I'm old enough to remember when Shirley Chisholm ran for office. So I mean, and these people have been around since then. A lot of them have been around as long as the Buffalo Nickel, and some of you don't even know what that is. But anyway, uh, but my point being, and I also bring it up to Mr. Scott and Miss Sims, because you had a chance to change your political scene, and you reelected the same damn people.
Well, before Miss
So,
Sims talks,
wait a minute. So my point being, my point being is that you talk about we have to change by legislation. We can't change legislation if we keep the same damn people in office.
but see
Point blank.
that's the game, because as I was saying on another show that I was on, see, when I worked for the county, I mean, I appeared from in front of Regina Chu, the guy for Chauvin. I mean, I know these people. I've been in there. But when I go to vote and you vote for the judges, they're unopposed. Okay? You'll see all these judges' names and nobody's even going against them. So I don't even vote for the judges, because what's the point? There's nobody going against them. So they get in these jobs and they just continue the same people over and over. And so I don't know how you break that. I mean,
And
how do you
sometimes
have,
people don't even know how to run. They don't know to start and
you have an election where the judges are there, but they're unopposed. They're
mm-hmm.
unopposed.
So
What
so
is that?
I do. I mean, where do you start with the legislation,
it
Demetrius?
it
Yeah, I'll jump in. It's education. It has
mhm.
to start with educating people, young and old. Everything that these guys have just said is what we need to keep saying to each other, to our children, to our brothers and sisters and friends at work. And in my company, a plant on the south side of Chicago, a group of us posted the names of every judge. Now, the company wouldn't let us tell people who they should vote for, but let me tell
No.
you, we posted every name throughout the break room and we posted their voting record. It was obvious, right? It all starts with education, because there are people who've gotten to a place where Mr. Scott is and they say, what's the point? And Cook County, Illinois is a hotbed for this. This is where there are cop houses and they're doing things in Illinois. And I live north of Chicago, and it starts with education. So my short answer to your question is education. Educate yourself, educate everybody you talk to. And when you speak about it, speak intelligently, speak from a place of facts and data, and support what you're saying. And you can convince people and change their minds. And even if it doesn't feel like it's working, you can never stop. This never stops. We've been black our whole lives. We got 200 years of black folks on this call right now. We don't ever get to not be black. So we have to keep doing it. We will do it the rest of our lives.
So then, do we only vote for black people?
No,
I mean, when I
No,
get on,
hell no.
wait a minute now, wait a minute now.
That's detrimental.
When I get on an airplane, okay, I don't care who's driving this thing. I don't care who the pilot is. I just want you to get me back to where I'm going. And so, at some point, if we're going to be a country, there has to be. When I go to the doctor, you go to the doctor, they put you under. You go to the dentist, it's a white doctor.
This is
You
I didn't
do
no
what
race.
they're supposed to do.
No
You're
race. You
expected
can yeah. In Cook County, Illinois, you can look up the voting record of every single judge on a bench and you can see how they vote. And I'm saying, see if they're voting for things that align with your ideology as a black person.
But
And
if
we know
it's
what those
nobody
issues are.
running against them, then it
If there's-
doesn't matter.
No, if there's nobody running against them, you have to work with civil committees to say, we need a candidate to oppose this person. And there are people who do it. Our former president was the best at that. He was the one who put together groups to develop candidates. And we need pipelines of future candidates.
See,
all,
but
all those things are true.
That's the part of education that I think needs to be implemented the most. Not just knowing what the people in office are doing or have done or voted for or how they lean in, but more so of educating people about the possibilities and the opportunities with becoming a politician. The salary. People don't know that politicians make six figures in most cases. People don't know the perks of having those type of jobs to make it more appealing. So being a politician is not something that comes to mind because people don't think six figures. People don't think, a lot of people think that if you become a politician, it's just something that you're doing for free. And they don't understand that. So educating people, it has to come with educating them for leadership, educating them for a position in political stances, but then not only educating people to put in office, but also educating people to stand on the line with them, educating people to put in position so that it's always a backup and it's always not just one person, but making it where it's a multitude of people that are prepared to lead and have a mentality that is structured to help us because there are some black people that you'll put in office and they forget that they black. So that's not going to help. And they'll be reminded, but they won't be reminded until they experience something that's traumatizing where they thought that they're privileged.
Until they cross that line.
But I think that's the answer.
Reminded.
My answer to your question, Mr. King, about 1972 or 1974, what Dr. Casey just talked about exists now. There are programs, there are internships. My company has a leadership development program that is developing leadership skills. I actually mentor a young lady. There are these things exist in large companies because although it's not where we'd like it to be, it's a damn sight better than it was in 1980 or 1970. There are more black leaders. And to Mr. Scott's point, we don't just need to vote for black. And I think Dr. Casey said the same thing. It's not just about put black people in office. It is put people who care about black folks in office. They don't absolutely have to be black, and some of them don't get it done.
Demetrius, can you name me one black leader under the age of 45?
That depends on the definition of leader. I don't know that you can truly be a leader under the age of 45 because true leadership takes time to attain. It takes time to develop the skills.
Okay.
David Banner.
Right. Okay. Give me one. Let's see what I think. Let's say
there's a 40-year-old alderman on the south side of Chicago who you will hear about soon. And right now he's doing great things there. And people in Chicago know who he is. You guys won't know his name. That doesn't matter. He is putting himself in a position that working from an internship with the current mayor of Chicago previously, he is someone, and there are more like him. He's just someone I happen to know. There are people who are those opportunities weren't there. When I was 18 years old, there was no opportunity.
EEOC gave you those opportunities. The Pell Grant gave you those opportunities.
Okay. All right. We will have to agree to disagree. Those opportunities that existed when I graduated from high school in 1987 are the same as now. We're going to have to agree to disagree.
It wasn't even available when
I'm not saying that they're the same. But what I'm saying is that there was no giant step. There was always a baby step. There was always wait until it's your turn. For instance.
But now people taking their turn.
Right. Ain't nobody waiting anymore.
Yeah. Over the last 5 years, some things have changed.
Right. Come on. The only thing that's changed in the last 5 years is that now y'all can celebrate Juneteenth.
Oh,
that's it.
You may
Mr.
not
King.
see it right now from your view,
but
there are a lot of great things
we
going
said
on.
5 years now. We said 5 years.
In the last 5 years, there has been some change.
Okay.
There has been development in which where people are now the things that Demetrius is talking about exist at his company and other places. Those things wasn't here 10 years ago. I bet you they probably wasn't here 5 years ago.
They
They
were
probably
not.
wasn't here 2 years ago. So those changes, it don't happen. Just like success don't happen overnight. Change like that does not happen overnight. It's gonna take. It's like
Most of
the
most
NBA. The NBA. Whenever LeBron go to a new place, it take them about a year or two just to warm up to the team, to acclimate, so that they can win. Whenever whoever is being traded, they don't win immediately. It takes time to get in the groove. It takes time to learn the people that you're working with. It takes time to learn how those places work before you can actually win. So it may not, you can't see it right now. And I don't
social
want to use no
the,
Bible quotes because you're gonna really go in then.
yeah, oh yeah, but what I'm saying is social media has brought about a lot of this change, and that's why I don't, that's another statement because social media has brought about instant change in a lot of things, including how the other side gets its messages out. Because now instead of coming out with the hoods and the crosses, they come out in business suits.
They been doing that. They coming out in police uniforms. What
We
you
See,
know
talking
that.
about? They been
We
in
know
police
that.
uniforms
no,
since the damn
but
hoods.
but now they feel safe in doing it. Now there's no, well, I could only do this with my friends. Now they can come out on YouTube
I
and
like it. I
and
like
like
it. I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. You know why I like it? Because then they were hiding. Then they could sneak attack. Now I see you. I know you. And you're going to get smacked up like that man on that video got smacked up for calling that black man out of his name. He got smacked about 20 times.
we
Thank
we
you. I'm glad you are coming out. That's why I'm not opposed to Trump, because if Trump made them feel comfortable enough to wear their truth, I need to see all that truth because I need to know who I'm dealing with. You cannot address things if you do not know who you're dealing with. So let's say everybody's still hitting, everybody's still trying to, and Trump never happened. Hillary wasn't gonna make that happen. Barack couldn't make them people come out like that. They started though. That's where it started. They started
well,
coming out
Well,
on
yeah,
Barack. It was like,
the
wait a minute,
rappers,
they got this nigga in here. We gonna come. We coming out the woodworks.
the
Miss Sims,
rappers aren't going to save us either. The
Miss
rappers aren't going
Sims,
to save us either. They send the rappers all up to the football game. The rappers haven't done anything. The
What?
rappers
What?
is terrible. The rappers ain't going to save nobody. Why in the
Mr. Scott.
world? These
What?
kids now, they want to be rappers or they want to be basketball players. Why don't
That
they come
ain't.
out
That's not
and go
new.
to college? Why don't they come out and do something positive for them? You're not going to be
There's a
no.
lot of rappers that go to
hold
college.
up.
There are a lot
Oh,
of basketball
they
players
get
that are
these rap. The
educated.
rappers a bunch of foolishness. That's-
Oh Lord.
Mr. Scott, you, Mr. Scott, your city, your city, and no, I think it was your state,
Bunch
as
of
a matter of
foolishness.
fact.
Oh, great,
Your
they
state,
don't have no talent. They don't do
hold on.
anything.
Wait.
Mr. Scott.
Hold
You,
on,
you,
Mr. James,
your
please.
city.
So
No,
James
no.
Brown wasn't no alcoholic and no drug addict. So Richard Pryor, all of these people, and
What
they
did
still
that
made
have
great
to do?
movements.
What
You
the
can make
hell?
a
What did
great
that have?
movement and have a problem. There's not a soul that ain't got
But see,
there
the
gonna
thing is,
PTSD.
the rappers are one-trick ponies.
Who said
One-trick
that? But
ponies. They
that's
just come
a
out and
distorted
they
view
spit on.
that you
They
have.
say they spitting. This is what they call it. We spit.
Jay Z, what he doing? He was at the
Mr.
football field.
Scott,
What he doing?
Give me a
Mr.
break.
Scott,
Give me a
we
break.
we
Give me a
said
break.
the same thing. We said the same thing about
You
Little
should be
Richard.
ashamed of yourself, Mr. Scott.
Mr. Scott, we said the same thing about Little Richard. Come on now.
You're
Come
talking
on now.
ancient history. I don't even know who that is. You're talking
I
ancient
don't.
history.
I think Mr. Scott just messing with us. I think Mr. Scott is just messing with us right now. That's what I think. I'm enjoying it.
Miss Sims, you've been awful quiet back there. Come on now.
Well, you all were, and when Mr. Vargas
Bring up that vaccine. She'll get
and,
going.
and Dr. Casey, when I said the power behind the power, one of the powers behind the power the police power is in the political arena, and that's one of the areas you you need to have some focus on in terms of the areas that you're going to penetrate. If you're the veterans on here know that if you're fighting a battle, you don't send everyone out to one location. And while people are out in the street protesting, etc., you got to have somebody looking at the power behind the power. One of the powers behind the power is the political people who are voting legal things in place to be able to continue legally the things that they're doing. One of the things that when I was looking at the young man that was killed, police killed, who was asleep. One of the many things that I did, I went to see who was on the board of the police union, who the members were, and I ran across some things that are amaze you in regards. I looked at their newsletter, and in their newsletter, there's a law firm that's bragging about they haven't lost but one case so many years. It's very, very targeted and self-acclimating of what's going on. That fits in with the behavior and mentality of the leadership of the police union, and I think the leader of the police union that has been there 25 to 35 years. He resigned, I think, last year, and the person who took his place is the woman, the acting police chief that's there now. So it ties in together of what's going on and the mentality that's there, behind the scenes mentality that's there, that gives the policemen or whatever a level of comfort that they can keep killing people and get away with it. Cause so you don't keep doing something that you don't benefit from. And so there's that power behind the power is strong. And I think as a society, a lot of people don't have a stop to think what's going on, because this country is a republic. A lot of people don't know what a republic is. And but the people that are in power now, they know what it is. That's why they know what voting is and how powerful voting is in this country. So if they figure that they're going to be voted out in some manner, if I'm in power now and I don't want to lose that power, and I believe that within the next couple of years, the face of America is going to turn from white to brown. While I'm in office and power right now, I'm going to do everything that I can to stop you from gaining power. You may become, and I said this before, you may become the majority of faces in this country, but that doesn't say that you're going to be leading this country. And so I'm going to stop everything. And I know that voting is the key to this country and the power and stuff. So I'm going to sue. That's one area that I'm going to concentrate on, so that you don't get to vote. I'm going to put stumbling blocks in your way.
But that's the way the whole system has been used.
It's a strategy. And like I've said, all politics contain at least three things: a strategy, power, and control. You have to have a strategy to keep or put people in place to control others and what's going on. And now you've got to educate people on what the vote means. When you vote, it's not just one person in office. And people, I don't think, realize that in an election, everybody thinks the most important election is the presidency. They don't stop to think how it's all connected, because a president is in there, can be in there no longer than 8 years, but a president can appoint the Supreme Court, who's in there for life. If you're still living at 100 years old and you want to be there, that you're there. And so I don't think that acknowledging this falls under education, that people know that choosing the political process is like building a team in regards to what we would think the most favorite team that you build will be all Democrats or all one party, so that it's like a building a basketball team. You want everybody that's on the same place now playing, so that if you build um, a team of politicians that's all Democrats in the legislature, in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, and in the executive, in the at the executive level, then you've got a team that's all players that are the same mind. And so you would expect those team players to agree on the legislation that's going to be passed, etc. Who's going to choose the judges? Who's going to choose the Supreme Court? Now, what comes to file is that if you've got the House of Representatives that majorly Republicans, but you've got a Senate that's Democrats, then you've got a problem in regards to one can counsel the other out in some things that they want to do, and you keep a stagnation going on, a struggle going on, and you don't get anywhere. So in terms of Mr. Kim, you keep saying you all keep choosing the same people over and over again. When you choose your elected official, you have to see who's out there and who's running against this person. And if the people that's running against him are weaker than he is, you gotta make some sort of decision in regards to, and hopefully, and he's the stronger of the candidates, whatever way you're thinking, you gotta put some thought into it. Because here in Minneapolis, and I keep saying, whether people want to believe it or not, a battle's going on. We're fighting for our lives, our black men's lives, our sons, our husbands, etc., etc. So you just don't to get somebody out unless it's extreme, and you've got to have somebody that's stepping forward that's going to take that place. And even wait a minute, Mr. King. Last week on Don Allen's show, you all had a candidate run, a Republican, because he's called himself a Republican conservative candidate running to be Attorney General. He was weak as water. You all just babied him. I mean, you babied him.
Hold on.
Make my brain hurt. You all made my brain hurt.
Well, see, that's what you find out, though, by watching these programs. Like, I didn't know Dr. Casey was in the rap game. I didn't know that until I watched the. Now, she's in the rap game. I didn't know that.
I do write rhymes in my spare time.
Hold on, Ms. Sims. If you remember, I asked him how could he be Republican and conservative.
Yeah, I wrote that down, and you were right on target. I was right next to you.
So I can't. So I don't see where I coddled him. But anyway, when you talk like I was saying, now we have a lady out here in California. This lady had been in office so long that somebody had to tell her goddamn name in the morning. Now you mean to tell me that we didn't have not one candidate in the whole district that she lived in that couldn't get up and say, "Good morning, my name is so and so"?
I didn't say that.
No. I'm talking about how long we have let people stay in office.
Yeah, true.
That's
true.
what I'm talking about. Go ahead, Demetrius.
But we can acknowledge change, right? My son went to college in Atlanta and still lives there. They have 2 Democratic senators in Georgia. Are we ignoring that? And right now, the Democratic Party has all 3 branches of government, right? That's progress. I'm not saying we are there. I'm saying we can acknowledge that. And my son is 31 years old, and I talked to him throughout late 2020 when he said, "Dad, I don't think we can get this done." And I said, "Yes, you can. You call Stacey, right? Y'all call Stacey. You have to get this done." And literally, we had to wait extra weeks to find out. That is such a significant event that it will permeate through the rest of the country in areas where people don't think, "Oh, we can never do that." Yes, you can. Because
it's a teachable moment where
exactly.
you just say all 3 levels of government
are of the same party, but who's out there acknowledging that like you are and pointing out the significance, the great
Okay,
significance
so
of what you're
the
saying?
So how come we
it's
can't pass a
significant.
voting act?
The thing is, though, is that just because they're a Democrat don't mean that they have extremely
True,
different beliefs than Republicans. Most
I
of
true.
the
disagree.
time,
I disagree with that. Now, is it exactly what I believe? No. It is a damn sight better than what it was before. I know those two clowns that would have been senators had
I,
these
I'm
two
I'm
lost.
not I'm not talking about just in Georgia. I'm talking about
Okay,
across the board.
Here's
These
how part your
people don't
strategy comes
have
in. Yeah,
these
sure.
people don't always have different beliefs. They may take a different stance on how they talk about their beliefs, but a
I'm talking
lot of
about how they vote. That's what I care about. How
I'm
they
not
vote impacts legislation, which is how I think you make change in my life
your
is through legislation.
beliefs lead your vote. If you have similar beliefs, then that's why things don't never really change. It's always it don't matter who's in charge. Things are not
You
passing
think
because
Raphael
they
Warnock's going to
No,
vote the same as
hold
Republican
on,
senators used to vote?
Well,
or
maybe
people,
maybe
or
you,
people,
you missing
or
you missing
people
what I'm
that
saying.
don't vote, or people that
Demetrius,
don't vote.
Demetrius, how many black men has Camilla Harris put in jail while she was in California kowtowing to the black fear? But now all of a sudden, since she's become the vice president,
Her
and all
beliefs ain't changed, her words
thank you,
changed.
thank you,
A lot of times these
thank you.
people words say a lot, but their actions show very,
Uh,
very
So
little.
thank
you're
And then
suggesting, go ahead.
No,
people get
no,
in
I'm
office.
not. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm saying that
People
she
get in office
that
and then
So he's
they
saying that
coddle
she
people in
they
jail shouldn't be
depend
in
on
jail. You're
green
saying they
people.
shouldn't be there.
what?
They
Which
depend on green people. They put green people. They get people that's y'all talked about getting people. They nurture people. They bring people in. They bring people around and put people in a position that are easily influenced. People that are going to do exactly what they tell them to do. People that's so eager for some type of position or to say that they're on, kind of like a clout chasing, but on the political side where they want to be connected so bad that they'll sign up and do on and be involved in anything just to say they got a connection or just to say that they're down with a certain people, but they're not getting anything done because these people are only bringing you in to kind of change your views. They're only bringing you closer so that they can persuade you to think like them, to vote like them, to be like them. So even when a lot of times you go into office, whether it's Obama, whether it's Biden, whether it's any other leadership where they sell you a dream until they get in office and they don't follow through, like Biden did. Normally, that is because there is a disconnect between what you're telling me you're going to do and what you actually have the ability to do.
Go ahead, Demetrius.
Yeah, so I got a couple things. I'll try and be quick, but there's a couple. The suggestion
Go
that
ahead.
somehow Kamala Harris is a puppet, yeah, I'm offended by that. I don't think you can support that with anything real. The idea that she put a bunch of black men in jail, who I assume you believe didn't deserve to go to jail, and that she didn't put any white men in jail,
That's
is
not what I
patently
said.
absurd. I know
That's
you
not
didn't
what
say
I
that.
said.
The suggestion is that she was out there putting black men in jail. The separate suggestion is that somehow she's just a puppet and people made her vice president and now they're pulling her strings, controlling her. I don't agree with that either. I think that what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris promised they would try and do when they ran, I saw
Hush,
that for
little
what that was.
baby, don't
You're telling me
say a
what you
word.
want to do,
I'm
but I am
gonna
smart
buy
enough because
you
I'm
a
52 years old
mockingbird.
and I've been watching this
If
game for a
that
long time. Come on, really?
mockingbird don't
We're doing that?
sing,
All right.
God's
All right.
gonna
That's
buy you
that's
a
cool.
Yeah, yeah,
wedding
yeah.
ring.
Come on,
And
come on, let the gentleman talk.
No, I'm good. I'm fine with that. I can respectfully listen to different opinions, but it's cool. I'm fine if my opinion doesn't land or doesn't want to be heard. I'm cool with that. I'm cool.
I was listening. I just was rocking you on to sleep. If you think that Joe Biden and Kamala is following through, then
No, that's not what I said. But while you were singing, what I was trying to say was they are part of a game, right? And that game requires a lot of different people. Ms. Sims
right,
mentioned this. They can come in and say, I am submitting this legislation, and then 638 other people get to mess around with it, change it. They've tried to do the things they said they were going to do, and it gets sent back because people want to filibuster and do all this other bullshit that they do in Congress. And people want to say they didn't do what they said. I'm sorry, that's bullshit. They tried to do exactly what they said, whether it's Build Back Better, all of these things, exactly what they said. They did not okey doke me at all. They are trying to do everything they told me they were going to do.
Though, so why isn't it working?
The system doesn't allow them to just say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut. No president has ever done that. I challenge you to name the guy who said, I'm going to do all this, came in and did everything he said. The game doesn't allow that. Barack didn't do it. No Republican did it. The game doesn't allow it. So all I can do is say, I hear what you're telling me you want to try and do, your vision for the world, whether it's education, defense spending, how we treat retired military people, everything. That's kind of
like how puppeteering works.
Well, it sounds to me.
Hold on, because, well, it's not that I ever really care about the time anyway, but I do want to talk about another subject, and that's the way that certain books, and we all have mentioned education, and now we're getting to where there are certain books that we can't read, or as I earlier mentioned, CRT, that are no longer available to school children. But when I looked at the list of some of those things, some of the books that had been banned, and some of the things that are still allowed to be shown, I didn't see the silent movie Birth of a Nation. And a lot of you, I'm sure, are familiar with that, where they showed the Klan as heroes and, white women being attacked, but I didn't see that on the list. I didn't see Brer Rabbit or any of Mark Twain's books on the list. I didn't see To Kill a Mockingbird on the list. So my point being is that we ban books so that white children don't feel that they have been what was the word, that history that is objectionable to them or to those families. But what about the people on the other end of the whip? What about those that were getting, for lack of a better term, the ass whooping, or maybe, because you lived in a different part of the plantation, or you picked cotton over in the Eastfield, you were still a slave. It didn't matter. You were still on the plantation. So I don't understand about, white children have feelings, but black children don't. Demetrius.
Well, James, Mr. King, you just said that you wanted to change the subject, but really you haven't, because here again you're talking about the power behind the power, and that's some of the political stuff. I'm like Demetrius. When it comes to politics, I want someone who knows the game, who knows the players that are in the game, how they play the game, and that's gonna help me decide how I'm gonna play the game. And banning books, we're being told, and by someone that is for children, white children, to feel better and not her feelings be hurt. But I'm not falling for that all at once. I'm not falling for that. There's something else that's going on in regards to people in places and political leadership allowing these things, banning books, to take place. So there's something else going on underneath that surface. But a lot of people don't realize or take time to look underneath the surface to see what's really going on, and they contribute to to the chaos and allow things to happen. And then sometimes it gets to be too late to try to make a change or a difference.
But
Go
see,
ahead,
history,
Demetrius.
history.
Go ahead,
Well, listen,
Demetrius.
the
No, I'm
history is
fine.
about
He can,
what happened.
go ahead. He can go.
History
Go
is
ahead.
about what happened. And so what happens is they don't tell you what happened. I mean, it's like we say the Bible, the King James. You want to, we don't, they want to control the narrative. And when they say CRT is what they want to say that, oh, it wasn't that bad. It didn't really happen that way. It happened, all these nuances in there. So what they're doing is they're continuing to massage and control the narrative to massage it to today's world. See, they don't really want to tell you just what happened so that we can just digest that and go from there. They don't want to do that. They want to make up something that said, well, they don't want to tell you this part. You know, look at all the lynchings of all the black people coming up in going up through the South. Lynchings are murders. They would take pictures of people getting lynched. They would put on postcards. You'd see the people there that were doing it. No charges filed. No charges ever filed. So this is how they want to continue to change this narrative so that we're continue to stay down here. I mean, this is
What
really.
are we going to do about it, Mr. Scott? What are we going to do about it?
Well, that's
first of all, Mr. Scott, let me put a disclaimer in here to any white people that are watching. So I hope you didn't hurt their feelings.
We love you.
But anyway, go ahead, Demetrius.
Yeah, I don't give a damn about hurting their feelings. This is what the real is that it comes down to fear, right? We, because we've been black our whole lives, have never seen America as a country that is for us. It is not. The problem is white people, particularly racist white people, they view themselves as American, as patriots. So they see the social institutions of America as part of who they are. They can't separate.
You're 3/5. You're 3/5 of a man.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, you're right. So they see the social institutions as part of who they are. So if we attack their social institutions, we're calling them racist, right? So when we say critical race theory isn't about you being racist, white kid, white lady, it's not about you sitting down with your kid at the dinner table and explaining. It is about showing your kids that systems, the criminal justice system, the education
but they have
system,
to explain. That's what they fear.
The housing market, healthcare systems are embedded with the racism that has impacted our lives for hundreds of years. That is fact. That is not shading. That is not trying to make anybody feel bad, because we don't benefit if little white kids feel embarrassed or uncomfortable. That doesn't help my life at all. I'm still going to get stopped by the cops when I drive in a certain area of Chicago. It won't matter, right? So because they can't separate their own personal selves from their America and their flag and their Trump and all that bullshit, all that stuff. We're after dark, right?
Yeah.
Like, they can't separate themselves from that. They feel like we're personally attacking them instead of us pointing out a system that has impacted the lives of people that look like us for hundreds of years. They can't separate those two. That's why they can't.
He who writes the history controls the history.
Exactly. That's what Mr. Scott was saying. They get to write the narrative, right?
Yeah.
They don't want a real narrative out there. They want their kids to think it was all good and apple pies and Gomer Pyle and all that crap.
And I think
they worked for us, but we didn't treat them that bad. That's what the mindset is. But
right.
A lot of it goes to Mr. Scott said earlier when I was talking about the case with the United States, how they again control the narrative and they ignore certain things and they act like it's not. If you're black, you don't feel it that much. Literally just watched a video earlier of a white doctor explaining that a lot of white doctors feel like black people don't feel pain, like we're just like numb to everything, and it all goes along the same guidelines and mindset of well, black people don't feel anything, they don't have emotions. And I believe I read something to that notion too, where it was like they felt like we were super, which is why they fear us for real. Like there are
Wow.
things that you can see
Yeah.
that is initiated by fear that says that
Yeah.
because if you could just see a black person and you automatically think that they're a strong, dominating beast and they'll
Superhuman
get you if they
strength.
want. Yeah,
Superhuman
no,
strength. They have excited delirium. Superhuman strength. They
so
can.
they run fast, they play the sport, all this
Tasers
stuff, the
don't knock.
physical stuff,
Tasers
and
don't hurt
then
me. You can't
Right.
stop me.
and
You just
then
taser.
we are charged by the sun. We don't get sunburn. I mean, we get sunburn. We can
Oh, we're
sunburn.
energized by the sun. Is that what it's?
We technically we are. Vitamin D is
Yeah,
the
it's true.
natural source of vitamin D is the sun, but they don't see it. Like they're not. They have a distorted view of black people,
Superhuman strength. Superhuman. You know.
and they
Well,
literally believe that. They literally believe that we're
But they let their
invincible.
kids believe that a sailor can eat spinach, and all of a sudden he's super strong, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They
See,
got their kids
but
believe.
that's the control of the narrative. If you
Right.
think about the control of the narrative and what bringing truth to light really means, it means that you're going to have to answer questions.
You got to
You're
answer
going to
questions.
have to face some things that you can explain on
Yeah.
how you was raised incorrectly
Yeah.
and why you believe and treat people a certain way. And even if you have black friends, there are going to still be questions that you're going to have to answer when it comes to critical race theory or thinking or considering or just mentioning the real truth. This is why the history books don't talk about the indigenous people that were here. They don't talk about if the land was developed, how it was developed. They don't talk about all the things that black people have done in this country to build it. They only talk about how we were downtrodden, how we were beaten, how we were bruised, and that is a conditioning method based on fear. Because if I tell you all these bad things, if I make you feel like you the worst creature that has ever existed on this planet, if I tell you that dark light is bad, if I tell you that dark magic is bad, and then everything dark some bad undertone and evil undertone to it, then you're going to wake up every morning and look at myself like, man, I ain't shit.
Right.
I look like, and it is a conditioning. So the long term effects of addressing it now means gradual change because if we address it and we bring the truth to light, then the 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 separation of black and white it becomes less and less because most conversations most of the time when you hear about a black person converting a Klansman, it really ain't nothing but a conversation that's had where you realize that y'all got more alike than differences, that y'all actually stand for a lot of the same things, and then that makes that person feel like, well, you know what, well, maybe niggers aren't that bad. You know why? Because they had a conversation to realize that you go through the same thing, especially poor white people that are racist.
Exactly.
Like y'all get treated like us. Y'all just don't realize that y'all get treated
You
like
just
us until
stupid.
you
Yeah, you just don't get what how any of this is
right,
going
right,
on.
right.
well, well now,
But
hold on before y'all go on here because you've instilled enough fear in the audience already, and I'm going to bring in
Oh,
we
it's
love
about to get
you.
the
real
chairman.
now.
We love you.
Yeah,
Brother,
I'm getting ready to bring in Brother Williams, who's
My
the
guy.
the
Brother
chairman of the
Ward.
Black Panther Party here in San Diego. So, Brother Williams, I know you've been there for a little while listening at some of this. I was talking about the sentencing of Kim Potter. So you can jump in here wherever you'd like.
Well, I'm just going to kind of jump in where y'all leaving off in regards to white supremacy. And I like to just quote what Neely Fuller said in his book. And he said, to function within a system of white supremacy, insanity is required by all people. And to me, that lies the backdrop behind what we're talking about. And again, obviously, like what's already been said, as long as you're able to control the narrative and control how people think. And it's just all it is just what I refer to all the time when I say social engineering. It's just basically manipulating a population of people and creating how you want them to think in order to control the masses and make things move in a specific direction. And it has to do with dumbing down the population, and it has to do with creating. And to me, I think a lot of what is done with the entertainment industry helps to play into it, because what you have is you give your people an outlet, and by giving them an outlet, it's like it's preventing them from being bagged into a corner psychologically, to recognize that, look, and I say this all the time, we are at war. If I recognize I'm bagged in the corner, then I'm going to have that fight of me is going to come out, and I'm going to resolve the situation. But as long as you create an outlet, aka entertainment, aka things to subdue our ability to recognize what's really going on, then
Rap
I'm
game.
I'm I'm going to relinquish my power. And I think when you talk about the control of a population, this is exactly what goes on. All of these, and I would like to say creature comforts that we exchange in terms of freedom come into play. I mean, let's go into the difference between a people being domesticated based on the fact that they've been stripped of their culture, their way of life, and a foundation of empowerment. What you have at that point is you have a people that really don't know which way to turn. And so therefore stepping to the table of power with a position of power, is null and void. And keep in mind, throughout our operations of fighting for freedom, fighting for equal rights, we continually get suppressed as it applies to those things that would actually work in our favor, even going back to how you're talking about pissing off white people, and to that extent, or how like the relationship between poor whites can recognize the same thing. We have to go back and look at what Fred Hampton was doing to recognize the power that will come in and unifying the people to recognize the imperialism and recognize how oppression actually destroys us as a collective and as a people. And to me, when you look at the direction that the planet is going in, period, with capitalism, the generation of those that are in control are not really concerned about the outcome, because they got a plan on how to deal with the way things are going. I mean, y'all aware of what just happened with SpaceX launching another satellite, another rocket up into space, and they got thousands of satellites now that Elon Musk has put up into space. And he's already been promoting and talking about going to Mars. They got a plan. They got a plan, and those of us that are not part of the plan will be left here to eat each other's feces in terms of our mentality and our mindset. Why they
So
why they why they traverse. In
they
the
call that
meantime, you ain't gonna be able to follow them because of all of the space junk that's out there. NASA keeping track of over 20,000 units of space junk floating in the lower orbit. I mean orbit. This is crazy. So meanwhile, while we are caught up into the next craze of what goes on TikTok and our education 101 through YouTube, and afraid to pick up these things anymore. It's like, what is this? Like I seen a video where they was making fun of a child. They handed them one of these and they started touching on it. You know, looking trying to figure out why the touch screen ain't working. I mean, this is where our people are right now, and unfortunately, we got to go back to the basics of just real trench work in order to come out of this. And the younger generations are suffering from the amnesia of not recognizing what real development and real hard work is going to take.
Demetrius, this is your area of expertise. Why don't you comment on that?
Which point in particular?
Well, no, as far as the dumbing down of our people, as far as, like making sure we are, like you were saying, like Elon Musk, and, they're teaching, like the
Black
next
black
level.
people are stuck. black people are stuck in what's called suspended animation. Okay, I call it just suspended animation that the black people are stuck in. They're looking at all this stuff on TV. The rap game. Oh, this rap game just gets on my last nerve. I don't want. They put all that stuff at the Super Bowl. All these over. You know, these guys are all past their use by dates, and they're the new music kind of a thing. You know, they
You
don't
ain't
play
like
no
the
instruments.
halftime show?
They don't
But
play, they don't play no instruments. They don't
hold
play
on,
no.
Mr. Scott. Who's your senator, Mr. Scott? Mr. Scott,
Senator for what? Who's my senator for what?
you only got two. Either one, you can name either one. You only got two. Who's the senator from Minnesota?
That doesn't come to mind.
Oh, but you can remember those overweight rappers on the Super. Okay, go ahead, Demetrius. Go ahead, Demetrius.
Yeah.
And
so
your
Dick-
point is, and your point
My,
is,
my point is, you should be tending to the senators in your state rather than worried about what Snoop Dogg is doing. That's my point. But go ahead.
It was an awesome show.
So,
Go
I
ahead,
think
Demetrius.
so. Brother Williams brought up a lot of things. I think there's a piece that we get sensitive about, but it's true, and it's about as parents, right? As Black parents, what are we driving our kids to? His point about the kid touching the book, looking for the screen, cannot be overemphasized. He is dead on, and a lot of people are missing it now. For me personally, because and I think what Mr. King is referring to is that I've run a mentorship program for people of color in my company. It didn't exist. And I challenged my company and say, the reason we don't have African-American leaders in my company is because you don't have a method for the people who work at this company to become leaders. And it's something that it's been years that me and others, it's not all me, I don't mean to suggest that, have been driving. But a big piece of that is, oh, by the way, the Illinois senators are Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth, just for the record. So just for the record, but that I still think ultimately in everything I'm saying, hopefully you're hearing the same message, which I think you do it through education and legislation. Some of that is us educating our kids. Some of that is us educating each other. I like these forums for that reason. I've heard things on here that I don't agree with. I've heard things that make me think. Right. And that's the whole point of this. But now when I go out into the world tomorrow and I talk to another person of color, maybe it's someone I know, maybe it's somebody I don't. I'm going to tell them about this and what we talked about. I'm going to ask them if they know who their senators are, because I just think that's a cool thing to do now. Right. I'm going to talk to them about how important reading books are. And I only had one child, and my reading was an integral part of my son's life. Now he's 31. That was all pre-electronics. If I had a kid today, they would read books. They would read lots of books, and they would have their screen time, of course. But the statement Mr. Williams made about the kids being raised by TikTok, and I have nothing against that. I have nothing against the rap game. I'm fine with the rap game. I would take Frankie Beverly and Maze or the Isley Brothers, but I'm 53 years old. That's fine. I got nothing against the rappers, though. So I think there's room in it for all of it. But I think we have to own it.
And Amy Klobuchar and I worked and I've had lunch. I've had lunch with Amy Klobuchar. Okay,
there you go.
When I worked for the county, I've had meetings and I had lunch with Amy Klobuchar. All right.
I think the one last thing. I'll say one last thing real quick. Sorry, guys. Is that each one of us can do something every single day. I don't doubt that we are. But I think that's the thing. I can't change everything. I can't change laws about no-knock warrants and different laws about chokeholds at police. I can't. But I can talk to a 16-year-old kid, an 18-year-old kid tomorrow who I mentor at my company, and I can change the way she thinks about the world. Maybe that's my deal. Maybe that's how I get to do it. Maybe I talk to this alderman on the south side of Chicago, and one day he's my senator. I don't know. That's how we do it, though. And we never stop. We don't get the luxury of stopping. We're Black. Right. We don't ever get to stop. We have to keep going.
I think that the things that we do not agree on allow us and causes us to think also, because it furthers our depth of perception and how we view things. So mere disagreeing, and most of the time it's not that we totally disagree, it's just that we have there's a variance. It's a level of which level do we connect on in a certain area of topic of discussion. Now, when it comes to rappers and the rap game, because I think that I hear Mr. Scott, and I don't know if he's joking or not, Demetrius, but what I will say is that we have to give room for people that may have one strong suit or dynamic, the ability to be diverse and change. People always looked at me as a fighter. I fought a lot. People always thought looked at me as a loud mouth or a troublemaker, which I can be all of those things. But right now I am somebody that nobody ever thought that they could see me becoming. In my book, It's My Time. It actually I did interviews with people, and in one of the interviews, my cousin told me she thought I was either going to be a stripper or be in jail.
Oh.
I'm neither. Never been on a pole. Never even,
Thanks for clarifying that.
I like
I've
that
never
pause
been in
there.
jail.
She did. She gave us a little drama. Yeah.
I've never been in jail. I've never even been in handcuffs before. I've never been on a pole. I am very
I want to
conservative.
try it. I don't know.
There was a time where I did go when I was in the Army. Me and my friend was gonna go but I didn't do it. We didn't get that far. We got to the door. We was like, maybe not. But the point is, a lot of times we see people in one dimension and we don't allow for them the ability to change, grow, and evolve. There are a lot of rappers right now, including Snoop Dogg, who now owns Death Row Records, um, including Jay-Z, who is doing big things as far as justice reform and all of these other things. You got people that, one, they got to get into enough clout position and financial security to where can't nobody take away their status, because now they're making a move and attempt to do real things. It's almost like the guy that was suing the NFL and now they gave him a job to shut his ass up. Well, guess what? As
Your
long as
guy
you
is,
need them financially, they're going to do whatever they want to do to be make you be quiet and to limit you. But when you get in a position where you're financially capable of saying, you know what, I don't need you. If you quit supporting me, if I lose my endorsement, my sponsorship, or whatever else that y'all giving me, I'm going to be fine. Until you can in a position like that, you are limited on what you can say. A lot of these rappers ain't making no money outside of touring. A lot of these people are
Yeah.
signing deals where they cannot speak. Even if they wanted to say something, they're not allowed to release records when they want to release records. And the records that they release have to be approved, and it has to meet whatever narrative that the record label that they're signed to is saying. So, and there are a lot of just shut up and dribble narratives that go beyond basketball.
And
So,
yeah, I think as a society for years and years, it's kind of what this country is based on, is conditioning and follow the leader and do what the leader tells you to do, etc., etc. But those of us that can see the power behind the power, knows that there's power behind the power, and know how to pull back the layers. We need to let other folks know, put it out there so they can think about it and possibly change their way of thinking. I say to a lot of my friends that aren't black and are remaining silent as they see black men being killed. I said, you better be afraid. You better be very afraid, because within your circle of friends and whatever, you've got Trojan horses, people that are out there showing their face and smiling and going on and saying, okay, we're going to deal with equity and social justice, etc., etc. But when they get out of the public view, they are showing another image to among their own kind, and among their own kind includes you.
that goes
So
back
when
to that
they
puppeteering.
so when they get it's kind of like a bully. When a bully bullies someone and that person either goes away or decides to stand up and challenge the bully, and the bully may stop oppressing that particular person, but that bully still has bullying features. So he's going to turn to somebody else. He's going to turn to you and want to bully you. So it's in with your self
Unless the
interest
bully
to,
get
to
bullied,
stop
but
it out, to
you
stop
got you
that bully everywhere down the line,
it
whether
the only way to stop a
extreme.
bully is a bigger bully. So that means in which we're speaking, somebody that has enough balls and enough money to face whoever is going to come against them when they are
Well,
being bullied. Because in order to the person that stops the bully is the person that's bigger than the bully. The one that sometimes it could be somebody smaller than the bully. The person that's willing to stand up and say something. And a lot of times bullies don't just bully somebody else.
yeah,
Most
and
times when they stop, they've been punked to a point to where they're not going to do anything else. And that's where the guns and shit come in because people
well,
can't
Dr.
fight.
Casey, a while back, you were saying something in regards to the rappers and people that have through the years have climbed the ladder and have learned the system and learned not to let everybody control the money. And they're out there and they have power and they are, you're right, they're now in a position that they can't do just anything they want to do. But then there are people out there like Mr. King. I don't think he realized how powerful he can be, a media that he has in regards to the show, reaching across the nation in regards to getting various messages out, and even in the future, getting even more messages out there. So you've got people out there that are in media positions, etc., that are in a position of able to get the message out, to get more words out there in regards to what we're talking about and speaking of. But people like him has to recognize the position that they're in and the influence that they can have over others in terms of changing the narrative of what's going on out there.
Brother Williams, we were also talking about the banning of certain books and literature. What do you get from that when you hear about these different states, don't want their kids to feel bad about history?
Well,
It's okay. I guess it's okay if you're the one getting whipped, but I don't want to read about it.
well, I feel like a lot of that goes into the whole thing that we asked for as a society, as it has to do with this whole um, gender equality. I think a lot of this played on the back of that being weaponized against the population and used as a scapegoat to basically be able to say, you know what, since we going in this direction, now anybody that is offended by anything is going is going to be a problem. So I just feel like it was an intention to give the people what they think they want and at the same time use it against the people. And so to me, especially when you look at the difference between civil rights and human rights, and that we continue going down this path of civil rights, that opens up the floodgate for any type of discrepancy versus tackling things from the position of human rights. So, because someone feels like they want to operate this type of way today, and you don't want to acknowledge that with the whole pronoun thing that I don't get down with, but the whole pronoun thing, I mean, anything can be considered offensive, and by anything being considered offensive, and by the United States being the capital of suing, of taking people to court, it gets bogged down. Reality and real process gets bogged down in the justice system, the legal system, and manipulation from that standpoint. So I just simply think that the whole thing with the banning of the books was just a way to end and snub what they saw to be the rise of what was going on with critical race theory and the quote unquote minority having a voice. So now you just shift to the different type of minority and give them the voice and allow that voice to be able to suppress everybody else's voice from the standpoint of having issues with feeling or taking offense to something. And I just feel like that was just, just another ploy, being playing the chess game, and them thinking multiple steps ahead of what people think they want.
Uh, Mr. Scott, you have an award-winning book. We've talked about it numerous times. Part of it is about or it is about the history of, well, the Black history of Minneapolis, more or less. It is. I mean, what do you think about, perhaps your book might get on that list of books that can't be at the public library, at the school library, not the
Well,
public
yeah,
library.
that's a good question. Our book, Minnesota's Black Community, the 21st Century, got a national award. And books are based on the books my father did, 3 books in the Twin Cities. Actually, his first book, my dad was from Chicago. Actually, he was born in Greenville, Mississippi, but he went to DuSable High School in Chicago. And he was a homecoming king in 1947. He was always proud of that. And he did his first book in Chicago, where he went to school at DuSable with people, I mean, they're just a who's who of you can think of. They either went to DuSable or Phillips back in those days. And the musicians were just unbelievable. His personal friends, Eddie Harris and Johnny Griffin, and all these people would stop when they were in town. And so I've continued to do the books. And so we're also going to try to get the Chicago book that he did in 1956. It's in the DuSable Library, and we're going to try to get that out. But what we do with the books is to just really show another side of our life. I mean, it just shows that. See, Dad growing up in the south side of Chicago on 42nd Street in the Bronzeville area, where he saw everybody came through there when they came through Chicago. There was a tailor there named Scotty Piper, and everybody would come to Scotty Piper to get clothes made when they came to Chicago. I'm talking about going all the way back to Joe Louis and Lena Horne, and so Mr. Piper would take actually pictures of these people that would come in that he would make clothes for, and it's actually a book now too that I'm trying to work with and hopefully promote that. So we do our work. Matter of fact, I'm going to be on a program, oh boy, next week with the mayor of St. Paul, with his mother, who is the head of the Ramsey County Commissioners. She's president of the Ramsey County in St. Paul. And I'll be talking about our book and what we do on a positive light to our community, that the things that we see on TV, the things that is really not who we are, that there's a lot of things, education. And the thing I love about Dad's books is it's not just the professors and the college people. You'll see bus drivers, you'll see mailmen, you'll see people that are doing things to raise their family. And so this is what I do now with my nonprofit, to show the other side of what we're doing. It's not all about shooting. It's not all about drugs. It's not all about, we are a people that really can run this country, that are involved in everything that makes this country go. And that's what we do with Minnesota's Black Community, the 21st Century, and our nonprofit, Minnesota's Black Community in the 21st Century. And the book is done well. I think Dr. Casey showed me that she may have had a copy of one of our books, which I was proud of. And so we're going to keep going with that.
When I looked at your book, I thought it was great, and I got 4 copies of it. And one of the reasons why I think it's on tune to what's going on, because one of the areas that my organization works with is an organization of people that are homeless or becoming homeless. And I heard some of the leaders in that say, I don't know anything about my own Black history and things like that. And when I saw your book, it shows people that they're living among, that they're moving among and living, that are leadership, that are doing, that are leaders and in leadership roles. They're not in the media, so you don't know who's going on around you. And so I saw that as a means of letting the two young ladies know what's going on around there. And they're doing great things regarding the homeless population. And I think of you, Mr. Scott, in terms of one of the aspects that they're doing is child going into child protection, going into the child protection roles, because when they were younger, they were doing things that wasn't maybe conducive to what the child needed, whatever. But they've gotten older and they're looking back and they want the children back. They want to connect to the children and things like that.
Yeah.
So they're struggling with the system in how to do that. And one of the things that my organization does yearly legislative breakfasts and things like that. And one of the things nobody has brought up, I haven't heard anybody bring it up, that and their bill at the legislature now in terms of the African American Preservation Act, in terms of reclaiming the children and things like that. And nobody has brought up the aspect when you and the child protection is out there for a reason. But and you've said it before, Mrs. Scott, in terms of the focus in terms of getting children connected back to their families. And one of the things that I brought up in terms of when they were having a breakfast with some of the legislature, not only child protection interrupts the Black people's bloodline and heritage, and that's key. Nobody's talking about that aspect of how if your children need to taken away for various legitimate reasons, but now people want their children back because that's their bloodline, that's their heritage. They don't want to lose that particular aspect of it, and nobody's talked about that or brought it up that I know of other than me. So that's a valuable aspect of it.
You're absolutely right.
Valuable aspect of it. And there are things out there that even the politician, I think the Attorney General Ramsey County, one of the young ladies brought up that he didn't even know that existed in terms of child protection, or how they were using child protection to keep families apart in regards to not doing whatever they could to bring families back together regarding that. And that's powerful stuff out there.
Well, yeah, it is. And I'll just briefly, the time that I worked at the county here as a child protection supervisor, it was always imperative for me to say there is family somewhere. There has to be someone. Let's exhaust all resources for family to see if they can take these kids. And 9 times out of 10, there would be people, and it came down to how hard you wanted to look. And I had one particular family, and I'll just be brief, from Mississippi, and they came up to get their grandkids. And they said, well, no, the grandkids are with foster care. They've bonded with them. I said, well, no, this is the grandmother and grandfather. They drove up here, got a hotel, came up here to get their kids. They came to court. They should be able to. There's nothing wrong with them. But they said they had bonded with the foster parents. So it was a huge battle when the foster parents happened to be white. And so it was a huge battle to get these kids back to the grandparents. I mean, grandparents they didn't know that their granddaughter was in all this trouble up here because they didn't tell them. They get ashamed if they get up here and they get involved in all kinds of nefarious stuff. They get ashamed, and they don't want to let them know right away where they could just come up and get the kids before you even. Right. So you want to avoid getting into the system. That's the first thing you want to avoid. Right? Yeah. You don't want to let the court come in there and say where your kids go, because they don't know. They don't have a clue. So
Right.
you
And one of
really
the
want
other things, yeah, one of the other things that I've learned about in listening to others with the child protection route, that it is a for especially for young folk, it is a pipeline for young folk to become homeless because once you're 18, you're on your
yeah,
own kind of, and you're
that's
stuck out there.
another
If you're
thing. Yeah,
uneducated, don't know what to do, don't know
they're
where to
thrown out.
go.
They're
It's a
thrown out
straight,
there.
it's a straight,
Yeah.
it's a
But
straight line to becoming homelessness,
we'll, we'll,
Yeah.
becoming
we'll,
homeless.
we'll talk about that in another show, Miss Sims.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Demetrius, can I ask you, uh, within your group that you mentor, is there certain requirements as far as education, financial, so forth and so on, or do these kids come to you by some type of referral?
They're both. Some of them I recruit from within my company, and you simply have to be diversity, a woman or a person of color, because I don't get down with white kids. So it's it is I'm not I don't mean it that way. I mean my experiences and what I bring to the table are more conducive to benefit a young black man or a young black woman. And that was the whole point. Me and two other people started this whole thing for that reason. And I credit the company for letting us do it. So we get kids from the University of Illinois Chicago, we get kids from outside of the state that work for our company in different locations and right off the plant floor. There are people right on the plant floor who just come, and there's a chart on my office door, and they can just sign in for some time that they want, and I stop my work. I carve out that time. Some of them I talk to about what it's like to be a professional, how to give a speech, how to put together a presentation, how to develop an idea that you want to convey. A lot of it is one day I want to be a director in this company. What's my path? And for a while, the answer was there is no path. And then that became my cause. And then we dug into how much women in our company were being paid compared to men doing the same jobs. And that pissed me off. And there was 6 months where then that became my cause. And so it's not hard to find. The things just come to me. But a lot of it is word of mouth. People working in the plant saying, hey, we have black leaders in our company that want to mentor people. And they'll just give them our number and they'll call and say, hey, can I schedule a meeting and talk to you? And I'm working at a job or I'm going to school. What classes do I take? How do I develop this path to become an impactful professional in whatever industry or environment they want to work in? And a lot of it is just we recognize that what we could do was share, mentor, share, give them the knowledge that we have. And that's the easiest thing I can do, right? That's the easiest thing is talk to them, answer questions, give them advice, teach them certain things. And so for me, that's just been 10, 12 years now. It has been sort of the job. What I do for work is kind of secondary for me. And luckily I work for a company that understands and appreciates that and lets me do it, So yeah, I'm blessed in that way.
Now, Dr. Casey, you also have an audience, and you also have a lot of books, and you talk about your trauma and things that have happened to you in your life. How do you reach out to your audience? Someone comes for the first time. I know, as before the show started, I mentioned I saw a reference to you on Instagram, so I know you have a lot of social media presence, and you want to kind of tell us like how you get involved with uh, a lot of these issues, and unlike me, are not quite as jaded about some of the issues.
But do it in a rhyme. Do it in your rap voice. Do it in your rap voice so I can check out your flow. She's on mute. She's purposely on mute so we can't hear her flow. I see what you're doing.
I said I don't have a rap voice.
Okay.
What I do is I change your voice on the mechanism and I make you sound like Switch Your House.
Well done. Well done.
So what I do is similar to what Demetrius said as far as getting information out, but I actually do what I call beta testing and case studies where I use situations like in the rap game where people go through different situations and they face challenges, and I try to use those as examples to show people what they can do better, show people how they can be better, and then I also because most of what I do is based on human behavior and psychology. I try to really just break down everything in layman's terms, but the best way to do that is to use community based narratives in which, again, I use things that I see on Instagram or things that I like. Maybe I comment on something where it talks about a specific topic. Um, for me, I talk about everything. It's about whole life growth where your soul is growing, your mind is growing, your body is growing, your finances is growing. Sexually, you're aware of what goes on in the world and what goes on with yourself and everything. So it's more about using examples to teach strategy to people because a lot of people don't take well to critical thinking and math, and they don't see the value in some of the school lessons that actually teach you um, how to think in the areas where you can't take their word for what to think. You might not want to think about the things that they're telling you is true, but you definitely should still use those tools in order to learn how to problem solve, learn how to work through things. And a lot of people talk about, well, what do you use math for? It's problem solving. You learn how to, if this isn't working, then you go back through and you figure out how it works until it works. And then reading and comprehension. A lot of things is where people listen, but they don't comprehend what you're saying. And so I just take realistic, real life things. I talked about Sierra and Russell Wilson and their relationship and how they used to dog Future. But Future allowed them to speak all the bull crap over his life. And he was like, they said it, I'm just gonna do it type of vibe. But then I also talk about like in an upcoming episode, I have or season, I have a whole series about R. Kelly and how sometimes people go into situations looking for one thing and they meet they match and they didn't realize that you thought they was fooling them and then they was fooling you and now y'all both fooling each other and everybody look like fools. But a lot of times women mentor their daughters into searching for things like that.
Yeah.
And so until we address those things, then there'll be a continuously um rapid cycle of just recreating the same thing. It's the same narrative and things don't change. But it also has to be addressed when you think about like R. Kelly in that situation. In the 60s, you could marry a 16-year-old. In the 50s, in the 20s, you can marry a 12-year-old. And having that understanding to where you can put things in perspective on not just why things should change or where things are wrong, but understanding that psychology of it and how the stress and the trauma of different things shape how we do life, because we're doing life, whether or not how we choose to gonna live through it? Are we gonna grow from it? Are we gonna address things, or are we gonna do what I call Christian denial and act like, you know what, we're gonna throw some Jesus on it and everything is gonna magically disappear? So all of those things are important to me because I don't care what type of business plan you get. If your soul is down and out, then that business is going to eventually reap the same benefits or the same results that your soul is rendering. So it's about, instead of just addressing your finances and all of those other areas, when you start healing from trauma, when you address trauma, face truth, and then you work through those emotions, which most men are told not to feel, and then women are told feel them as much as you want to, like let them control you, basically. So it's really breaking down the conditioning and the narratives that have been presented to us and allowing us to adapt to something a little bit more full when it comes to race, religion, and all of these things. Because even when I think about white people, they're traumatized too. They're traumatized from the other end of it. It's almost like when you think about foreign nations like Iraq or Afghanistan, where we've come in and we've bombed. It's not a place in the world that the United States has gone into and ain't tore the hell up. But when you think about those places, the same way we got PTSD from going to war and facing that, they have the trauma from being in the position of receiving those attacks and all of that. So on both ends, there are trauma, and a lot of people don't consider other people's trauma. They only look at it from their perspective. So my whole goal is about broadening perspectives so we can get a better understanding not only of ourselves but of others, because that's the only way we'll be able to really move forward.
Well, I come from that university of free your mind and your ass will follow. Um,
The truth will set you free, James. You know the Bible.
Sure do. That's why I'm a preacher's kid. But and that's why I also have a lot of. Well, anyway, we won't go into that. That's a different show. We've had
I
many.
was thinking.
Don't make me get up on my soapbox.
See, what you point out though is they continue to pull the wool over our eyes. I mean, this is what continues to happen. They just continue to pull the wool over our eyes. And then to get back quickly on the rap thing, I mean, I've played music my whole life, and one of my brothers was a very good guitar player. He's about 12
You got
years
that
young.
Snoop Dogg album in there right now. You probably got it on vinyl in storage, and you just acting like that on the
So
stage.
my little brother, unfortunately, he's sick and he's not able to play. He used to play with the Prince parties, and he was in it with all those things. He's an excellent guitar player.
Yeah.
And so they called me to sit in to do some stuff with them. I said, what the heck if I'm not doing anything? So they called me in these songs, Katy Perry, Drake. This one song, Drake, I had to play. I never heard the song before, but I just listened to it on my headphones. And all he says is, call me on my cell phone. He just says that over and over.
Okay, so I can give you a reference point for that particular song. So literally, that song is about how a person goes from being a nobody to being a somebody, and they used to call all the time when they was a nobody and they was pressed.
Over and over. So I go online to learn the song. And it's two notes, and it's the same thing over and over and over.
Do y'all got Krispy Kreme in Minnesota? You know that hot light saying, "Come on, Krispy Kreme," and you automatically, for the most part, that hotline.
I mean, but I'll just end with this. Those guys like him and all those rapper guys, they get over, but they're almost like Trump. Okay. Because when you really think about Trump, he's a bad dude. He gets away with everything. He done everything you can think of.
What do rappers get away with?
Rappers don't get away with that.
They don't get away with shit.
They're told they're following an agenda that they're told to do.
And if they don't do it, then they go to jail for the measliest little thing. They get caught up in the measliest little thing. I think the bank is the only person that is able to avoid.
That's a song.
You can't use Drake as your reference for rap.
No, not
rap. That's the fundamental issue here.
He sings.
You weren't referencing, right? You're using Drake as the reference point.
And that specific song also, let me tell y'all the history a little bit. The same time that came out, Erykah Badu came out with an entire album based around cell phone. And that had a lot to do with the relationship between the two. Okay. Hers just didn't blow up. All right. And not to be digressing, keep in mind, James Brown would play a riff.
Oh, I had mentioned James Brown earlier.
And all the rappers did was follow the same technique, same too. What he said, baby. How hard is it? How many lyrics is it to that? Please, please, please.
Make you
That's
feel
one.
good.
That's one. That's one word over and over and over.
Well done.
And he had a band. And he had a band, musicians that were playing.
And then
I saw
he was
a
fake fall
video
out.
of
He
Grace.
was
He's
fake
standing up.
falling out
Guys,
all the time.
Put the cape over.
He was fake fall out all the time. He was the biggest fake
Mr.
artist
Bird,
in the
Mr. Bird,
world.
bring the cape, Mr.
Yeah,
Bird, bring the cape.
Whoa.
I'm so cold.
It's just my point was it was just a modern day example of it's the same thing. It's just brought to a modern position.
Yeah.
The point is it's
same
a
old
groove.
suit, just
The
one
groove.
go.
It's the
Same
groove.
old
It's the
just
groove.
Yeah.
one go.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I do want to get one subject before we get go off the air, and Demetrius had mentioned it earlier, and that was the jury got their instructions today about the federal crime of Abrey being killed, and as a federal hate crime, which means that they specifically went after Abrey because he was a person of color. Demetrius, you want to start this subject out? I know you wanted to get into it a little earlier.
Yeah. So my thing, and I've been consistent probably all night about addressing this through education and legislation. And to me, really what institutionalized racism is that it's embedded in laws and regulations and rules and procedures. And the long-term way to address it is to remove it from laws, take it out, and making this a hate crime. And I talked about no-knock warrants and chokeholds with police officers. All these things are just embedded within the culture of the white cop, of the white person. And my feeling is that educating people on how these things oppress us, attempt to oppress us. I do not consider myself a victim of oppression. So I'm going to pull that back. How these things attempt to oppress us is through embedding them in the laws and rules and regulations. And this, to me, this is so critically important that they make this a hate crime, not just for this case, but to have the precedence to refer to next time. That's where it really becomes important, because you have a baseline now that you can go back and look at. Will it work? I don't know. White people are still probably trying to do what they do. But I think that this is the approach that I particularly believe over time can work. This is the way we should go about it. And I think that this is hugely important. They're already convicted. They're spending the rest of their lives in jail. There's a degree of okay with that. The real justice is we change behaviors through showing them that we will change laws and rules and regulations. This is way more important. I mean, they're both very important. As important as a civil conviction was, this federal conviction is an absolute necessity. It's huge.
Brother Williams, as a member of the party, you've seen this tactic used before, federal hate crimes, as far as sentencing is concerned. What's your thoughts on this procedure as far as Abrey?
I completely agree with what he just said. Is and unfortunately, I mean, even if you just go back during the civil rights era period, it's always when things become a federal situation that a lot of attention and the right moves are made in order to make the change, because the local governments and the city governments oftentimes are just going to be able to just they're going to just look the other way, and it just has to do with enforceability and accountability. So unfortunately, sometimes you obviously have to take things to that level, make it illegal and make it wrong across the board, regardless of where you are. And so that, in addition to being able to create the right power base to make sure things are enforced. And see, that's where it goes back to us as a people getting more involved in politics, more involved what's going on in our community. Because it's one thing to make it, illegal. It's another thing to bring light to it and to make sure the pressure stays on and remains on, so that the culture of this racism can be attacked and be addressed. Because that's what we're dealing with when we talk about institutional racism. We're talking about entitlement. You're talking about an entire culture that embedded on things being the way they are, and so the behavior and the expectations are different. The standards are different.
Yep.
So in order to attack and be able to fight that fight, you need more of us involved. You need more of us in the field doing the work, bringing attention to it, and recognizing. Kind of going back to one of the things we touched on earlier, the makeup of a family. See, to me as a Panther, when we think of the makeup of the family, it's individual, family, and community. All three things have to be encompassed. So when we raise our children, it's not about raising the children to simply go to school, get good grades, get a good job, so that you can in turn raise your children to go to school, get a good grade, get good jobs, but don't leave out the community. We keep leaving out the community when we talk about raising our children, and so they don't have a sense of connection with each other that is necessary, especially when you start talk about us being able to empower our community and change the perspective of the circulation of the black dollar. See, as long as we don't embed community within our family structure, it keeps us operating as individuals. And the main thing any controller of the people want to do is to separate the people, keep the people thinking like individuals. Therefore, you don't recognize the power you have when a collective is able to come together and make a difference. It even goes back to something I think it was Dr. Casey said earlier about the bully. See, it's two ways to attack the bully. It may take a bigger bully, or it may take a collective of people coming together to fight that bully. And I'm from the school of saying that if we collectively come together, then we can challenge these bullies. But
Yep.
we have to recognize that power. And we have to recognize that it is an accountability and a requirement that we view things from that point of view. It shouldn't be an option. Being involved in your community, being involved in social change, being involved in making things for the better should not be something that is an elective or an option for our people. If we recognize that we're on the battlefield, we're behind enemy lines, and if we do not make change, if we not do this, then we are doomed, and we're putting ourselves up for extermination.
Miss Sims, you want to comment on it? Miss Sims?
I'm just listening to it and to what Mr. William was saying, and that's I like when he my thoughts got caught up into when he was saying talking about how to deal with a bully, and he's right. There's one way of dealing with the bully is become a bigger bully. Another way is to use your head and outthink that bully. No, listen to him. Listen to the. If you listen to people, I keep saying, if you listen to people and watch their behavior and actions, they'll tell you a lot about themselves and how to deal with them. And so my plan is always to, outthink the other person who's out there trying to your adversaries, I guess. Uh, it's easy to in this case, the case it's easy to pick a bigger club up and hit them over the head, but you yourself have to strategize if you're using your mind to deal with somebody or something, to think it through to the end on how best to deal with it permanently, because other people have been watching that bully, and so once you get rid of him, there may be someone else that has come up through the ranks that want to be just like that bully. But if you outthink that bully and let the other person that the wannabe bully realize that there's a better and different way of dealing with the bully, that'll shut them down, possibly.
Dr. Casey.
She's got that smile on her face. She's getting ready to
She's
say
still on
something
mute, though.
big.
She's still on mute. I know. She's
Yeah.
giving us a drama pause, the dramatic pause. Here we go.
So it's not really much left to say. But I can talk about this rap game thing a little bit more because um, a, 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 a
I'm
lot of
talking about
times, a lot of times you're talking about people that lack guidance, people that lack mentors, people that lack the proper ability to develop a greater way of thinking. So, in a lot of these cases, it's about introducing new trains of thoughts, um, things that people can may disagree with initially, but as they continue to ponder upon it, yes, as they continue to ponder upon the thought that they may have at one time disagreed with, and they sometimes planting those seeds are the very things that allow for maybe in 5 years for you to see things differently. I
Oh, y'all ate
remember
enough.
when I remember when the first time somebody talked about Moorish Americans to me. And at the time I was like, man, ain't nobody listening to you. You talking about? He was woke. But now, fast forward 10 years later, and now I have a better understanding of what the Moorish American heritage really means about being indigenous, and knowing that every black person or brown person didn't come from a slave ship.
Yeah.
All of those things are relevant, but until you educate yourself or get around somebody or bump into somebody that's educated and can talk to you about those things, then your mind and the programming won't be shaped. Everybody is programmed. What do you do with
Mhm.
the programming? When I got out the army, not when I got out the army, but 2012, after being out of the army for a very long time, it was like, okay, instead of allowing myself to be a machine for the government. Now I need to reprogram myself to use that same machinery that they gave me in that
Yeah.
training to benefit what is purposeful for me, what is purposeful for the people around me and those that look like me, those that may have even struggled like me, that just need the knowledge. Like everybody ain't reading books. I don't like sitting down reading books. I got other shit I got to do. So I'm gonna put on this audio book and I'm gonna go on about my day. But for those that even don't know to go get an audio book, they don't know what book to get. Well, guess what? I've learned a lot. And everything that I know, I have installed it into my memory bank and I regurgitate it as needed. It's like a filing cabinet. My brain files all these things, and when something comes up, it's like boom, 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 boom. It's like it pops up. And so those things allow you greater influence, because if you can influence the influencer, then you don't have to reach 100,000 small people. You can go and
Mm.
reach 5 people that have great influence with millions of
Yeah.
followers, and
Yeah.
you would do more by just helping 5 people. You could help 5 people for free, and your message will trickle down to everybody that follows them, everybody that looks to them. If you've helped one person that has 10 million followers, then you've helped 10 million people and you just don't know it yet.
Uh, Mr. Scott, I'm going to let you start tonight, giving us the final thoughts for the day. Why don't you start, and then we'll get Miss Sims.
Well, James, I'll just kind of get on what you and I have talked about a lot earlier, and I think what Mr. Williams was talking about. We really don't have communities, black communities anymore. Like when we grew up, where we knew people in the community, we walked to school together, we were clustered together, and so we kind of had our own purpose in what we were doing. We all did it together. We all, I mean, my father worked with the man down the street. They rode to work together. I mean, so that thing of community, as we say it now, I just, for whatever reason, we live in all kinds of different places that they didn't let us live in before. We are really clustered in the areas through these things, redlining and freeways and tearing our communities up. And we've really been just kind of pushed around and pushed around. They tear our schools down, close these schools, push you here, busing here, do it. And so we just don't really have, as I know we've talked about, the community kind of a thing. But I think what we have to really do is refocus the thoughts of what community is to the environment we live in now. And I guess that kind of goes back to my disdain for the rappers and how some of you have explained to me that it's a continuum. It's a continuum of things change, the technology changes, the music changes. It's not, I used to ask my grandfather, he had an old guitar. And so that's how my brother learned how to play the guitar. It didn't even have all the strings on it. And so I asked him, I said, well, Pop, why in the world did all the blues guys play acoustic guitars? Oh, we didn't have no electricity down south. We didn't have no running water down there. We had a well. We had to go to the well to get. We didn't have none of that down. We had no electricity. And so when you really think about the evolution and the things that we're always kind of crawling up to get somewhere, and it just puts it in perspective. So I still don't have a whole lot of respect for the rap game. I still think it's, I'm not impressed by it. Call me on my cell phone. I'm just not impressed by it. Doesn't do anything for me. So.
You get that Chronic album over there.
Everybody got the Chronic album.
I know this is the Tupac. But anyway,
he get around. You know what, James? Last time we were just talking about how he was up in Chicago and he was.
I had a good time at the theater.
He had a lot of visual stimulation. He get around. He on that Tupac.
Very much so.
Go ahead, Ms. Sims. Give us your last thoughts for the evening.
Okay. This being Black History Month, I'll leave you with a teachable moment in regards to history. Number one, if you look at the Statue of Liberty and you go down to her feet, you'll find a broken chain around her ankles. A lot of people don't realize that. And that was because the French gave her to the United States in regards to the liberation of doing away with slavery. So when that first model was given to the United States, they didn't accept it because they couldn't deal with that. From where the French were coming from in regards to being glad of Black folk being in slavery, being emancipated. But a lot of people don't. Usually, if you look at the Statue of Liberty, all you see is the upper part of it. But take time to go down and look around her ankles. That's number one. Number two is the first Civil Rights Act was of 1866, and it involved blacks and the U.S. in regarding contracts dealing with the economic inclusion of blacks. And I've heard that in terms of Dr. King, one of his daughters was saying that they believe that this was part of, because he was going in that manner of including Black economics and things like that. That was one of the reasons that he was killed. That's all, James.
Demetrius, you want to give us your final thoughts for the evening? And thank you for taking time out. I know you're usually busy on Monday and flying around the country and whatnot. But I thought, we'd give you a little something different for Monday night.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, Monday is usually a travel day for me, just part of my job. But I'm glad I got to join. I want to first thank everybody on the call because the word community has been tossed around a lot. To me, this is community. For me, these 3 hours right here have been community. And I've heard something from everybody here that I'm going to take and I'm going to pass along in the next couple of days to a young person that I work with. I think that it's important for me to touch on this rap thing because it's killing me. Here's the thing. I'm gonna be good about it. I'm 52 years old. I'm gonna say if you want to know what rap is, go dig up two cats called Eric B and Rakim. Right. That's all I'm gonna say. Rakim is the greatest to ever do it. That's all I gotta say. And if you want to do it, like I had my group together once, and they thought we were gonna do this business meeting, and I said, no, I'm gonna introduce y'all to three things right now. We're just gonna listen to music. I played them two Eric B and Rakim songs. I played them some traditional jazz from 1959 from a guy named Charlie Mingus. And then I played them two songs from Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life. And I said, everything y'all just heard is all y'all need to live on, right? That's a full life right there. And the last thing I got is my bully story. We talked about all these different approaches to bullies, right? This is what happened with mine, right? So I had he was trying to bully me. I was smaller because I'm 6'4" now. I was smaller and much more of an introvert. So my bully story went like this. I had an older brother who was 6 years older than me. My brother went to their house and told his brother, if your brother mess with my brother again, I'm gonna jack you up, right? And so that kid never messed with me again, right? There's a lot of ways to approach. I think that's Mr. Williams' community story, right? My older brother, that's all about the community. And whether I'm talking to some kid about how to grow in his professional career, or whether I'm at a Big Brothers event and some little kid is saying, how can I be as tall as you? Sorry, bro, that ain't gonna happen. Your dad, God rest his soul, he was 5'9". That ain't gonna happen. That's still mentoring, right? Or my big brother settling this by, no, you don't need to fight that kid. You go do your work. You go to school to learn. I'll handle this. And I didn't have to tell my dad. My brother went over their house and took care of it. He didn't never mess with me again. So we all got different ways we approach it. But the community thing is the theme to me. And I appreciate every one of y'all just for the night. And I hope I get a chance to do this again with y'all. I seriously appreciate
it. Brother Williams, we're going to let Dr. Casey have the last. You got your cave, Doctor? Oh, okay. All right. Just want to make
Start writing them lyrics. Start writing them lyrics. I want to see that flow.
Go ahead, Brother Williams.
Well, I just want to basically say I like to stay on the mantra, going back to the cell phone thing, stay on the mantra of us not diluting our power and recognizing the importance of recognizing our power, as well as knowing that in order to be able to defend yourself against anything, you must first be able to recognize what is attacking you. Too often, I think that we get caught in our victimization to a point to where we don't know how to even identify an enemy. And we don't even know that in order to take on an enemy, take on that situation, you have to study it. And a case in point that we didn't get into, I'm at least throw it out there in the air for y'all to do some, chew on, is this situation with Cynthia Perkins and Dennis Perkins, if y'all familiar with that, where the gave cupcakes, with sperm to the children. That in itself was a satanic ritual. A lot of people don't know that. The ritual itself is called the cake of light. The cake of light. Look it up. And the point is that in their twisted, seductive way, it has to do with creating a way to influence the next generation so that you can have control and dominate them. Satanic rituals are behind a lot of the stuff that the powers that be implement across the masses of people. And the fact that we don't know what our enemy is doing, we don't know how to identify enemy, then means we can't form a defense against the enemy. And we have to come out of our delusions of what I call victimhood in order to be able to change that, in order to be able to move on and develop the power that we do have. And then the last thing I got to say to that is, this is for Brother Anthony. This here is called an MPC. This is just as much of a musical instrument as a guitar. All right. I ain't even getting the fact that I do music production. Okay, I ain't even going to the fact of that. I'm just leaving that off the table for now.
I'm looking. Okay? I'm looking behind you, so I know what some of you.
We done teed this up for you, Dr. Casey. You got to knock this out. We done teed this up for you.
Okay. So I would like to first talk about the ritualistic things that you mentioned with the satanic rituals because it reminds me. I think 2 weeks ago when we were on, I talked about that song where Pastor Troy talk about what if everything that we believe is good is evil and everything that's evil is good, because there are a lot of rituals that happen in religion and Christianity that people don't realize are rituals. Actually, somebody was online today and they mentioned how people they believe in the universe. They're doing all this, but they don't talk to God. They talking to all their ancestors and da 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 da. Well, technically, Jesus is an ancestor. Technically, when you drink um, and eat the cracker, like cannibalism, that is a ritual. A lot of prayers and chanting and all of those things are also rituals. So, a lot of times we mask the ritualistic portions of it with traditional understanding or excuses. And it goes back to the Christian denial, which when you tie in the Christian denial and you put in why people look at rap the way that they do, it's normally because of a religious train of thought that says if you talk about this or if you do this or if you're outside of this square box, then you're wrong. And what you're saying doesn't have validity. And what the reality is a lot of times these rappers are speaking their truth in the best way they know how. They're using their gift to make room for somebody else to not have to do whatever it is they've been through. Now, all rappers ain't talking good. All rappers don't have those deeper thought felt lyrics. But I personally like to challenge rappers to read more books because if you read more books, your vernacular and what you're talking about is going to automatically change because now you have more information. But when you're talking about people that's dropping out at seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th grade, then their thought base is very limited. The same way that I said that I had this long file cabinet of all these things that I've experienced, learned, and took in to be able to apply to my everyday life. You have people that have never had any emotional experience. They've never had any physical experience behind beyond violence and abuse. So you have to introduce deeper, more thought felt things. So letting people know that it's okay to feel emotions, that it's okay to question the things that you've learned in religion. It's okay to see things differently, whether you like rappers or you don't. No matter what area of expertise somebody comes from, there's going to be some type of baggage, some type of packaging that may not buffer well with you. But it doesn't matter about that because for every person that has a gift or a talent, there is somebody else that is open and able to receive from them. There's some people that won't be able to receive from me just because I use ebonics heavily. I cuss. I talk about things that people will be uncomfortable about. So there are people that will tune me out and they will put me in the rap game. But there are the same people that only hear a release from music. They only way of learning and feeling connected, feeling supported, feeling guided, feeling anything. Jay-Z is is a pillar in my life. When I was going through, you know who I was listening to? Hove. Hove told me don't do that because he did it and I don't have to go through it now. So he changed my life because it was a lot of things about men that I learned. It's a lot of things. A lot of these rappers, I learned a lot about men. You know why? Because I listened to them. You ain't rapping that just for the sake of rapping that. You've experienced something to make you feel like that. You've seen something to make that a reflection in your rap. And now my job is to listen to you and understand you from what you rap about. Even a singer or songwriter that don't write all of their things, something about what was written they identify with because they was able to take it and then they're going to perform it like it actually happened to them. So it's a lot of learning and growing tools available. Speaking Freedom TV is
Yeah.
one that tries to go and break down all of those different narratives to every level of understanding, whether you are young, old, or somewhere in between. You have to be able to, one, once you begin to accept yourself, your past, and all of those things, then what other people got to say, you will be able to take it a little bit differently because of the fact that you know what you went through, what you grew through, what you had to learn from. So it makes what they're projecting, one, you're able to identify that it's a projection because now you're healed. You don't take on what everybody else is put. Listen to Mary J. Blige. You know why I don't listen to Mary J. Blige? Her ass is always damn hurt. Somebody always and did something to her. She always,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying, needing. And it's not about needing love. It's about how you're speaking to the fact that you want love. Don't talk about how everybody did you wrong. It's like, damn, Mary, you still sad? Like, God damn, you've been going through for about 30 years, girl. What you going, like, when do you take the things that you've experienced and begin to learn from those things so that you don't keep going through the same thing over and over and
Don't
over?
hold your breath on that
Black
one.
boys, all the black boys want to be ballers or rappers. They want to all be a
And all those
baller.
black kids are coming
Do
from
that.
broke
You can't do
environments.
that.
Not
That's
true.
ridiculous.
But
Not
you're,
true.
That's
listen,
ridiculous.
Mr.
well,
Scott,
we,
Mr. Scott,
Ridiculous.
Mr. Scott, you're
here,
talking about people that come from poverty. So the first thing that you want to do when you get out of poverty is never go back to poverty again. Now you may have a misguided perception of what you want to get into, the things you're going to buy, until you realize that those things that you buy are not going
Start
to
with a
satisfy
job.
your
Start
soul or
with a
your
job.
mind.
I talk to
oh,
12 and 13-year-old boys every day who want to be CEOs. They don't want to be rappers. They don't want to be basketball players. They want to run their own businesses.
They
They want
can
to be
look and
entrepreneurs.
see.
That's what they want.
and Mr. Scott, maybe you are familiar with their music, but my first influence as far as the rap game was a group called the Lost Poets. Going
That's
back to
right.
free,
Sure.
your
Yeah,
mind, and your
but
ass will follow.
that's a whole
No,
different
no, no, no,
that's
no.
a,
That was
that's
the
a
rap.
whole different
That
level.
that was the rap of our generation. Don't give me
That's a
that
whole
bullshit.
different
Don't
level.
don't give me that bullshit. That was the rap of our generation. So with
Well,
that,
I'll have to come back. I'll have to come back on this show so I can really play some parts.
We have to. We come back. I'm going Wu Tang.
We'll bring you over.
Wu
We'll bring
Tang.
you over.
I see.
I'll be back. I'll be back.
All right, y'all.
Peace and
I'll
love
see,
till the next time. Bye bye.
I'll see y'all next week.
Call me on my cell phone. Dr. Casey, call me on my cell phone.
Have a good one. I'll see y'all next week.
All right, see you. Have a good night, everybody.
Mr. Scott, did you check your PayPal account? Mr. Scott, I see you still over there. All right, I'll let you go.